Chapter 968. At the same time, the black-robed monk glanced at Miss Lu, seemingly surprised by her knowledge of the Darazang temple. "You're right. My Dharma name is Mujing," said the black-robed monk, his eyes indifferent and calm. His bearing was like a mountain, tall and majestic, and his momentum was extraordinary. "Since you know who we are, please leave immediately." Mujing put his palms together. Although his attitude was calm, there was a strong and resolute air about him that could not be disobeyed. "Please leave." The other 4 black-robed monks also put their palms together. Unlike Mujing, there was a touch of cold, killing intent between their brows, which was even more frightening. "Wow, you're so arrogant." Shun Baixin looked surprised. "This is the first time I've seen such an overbearing monk. If you want us to leave, you have to defeat me first." Boom! As he spoke, a golden divine light emerged around him, and his power was as turbulent as the sea, incomparably frightening. However, Mujing and the others looked at Shun Baixin indifferently, as if they were staring at an idiot, which made the latter furious. "What are you looking at? If you want to fight, then let's fight. I'm not afraid to tell you that I've already killed all your companions, but they're too weak, which I'm very dissatisfied with." Unexpectedly, hearing this bad news, Mujing and the others just frowned. Their expressions were much colder than before, but they were not angered. This surprised Lin Sun and the others. These descendants of the Kitagarbha temple were simply a group of cold-blooded animals, as if they had no emotions, which was frightening. "Well, let's continue." Mujing withdrew his gaze, turned around, and sat cross-legged again, facing the Black Buddhist shrine. He turned the rosary beads in his hand, looking solemn as he chanted something. He completely ignored Lin Sun and the others, treating them as if they were nothing. Moreover, the other 4 black-robed monks did the same. They sat cross-legged, guarding the 4 poles of Mujing, and their bodies glowed with a mysterious black Buddhist light. "You bald donkeys are really arrogant." Being ignored made Shun Baixin very unhappy, and he immediately wanted to rush over to kill them. "No!" Lin Sun immediately stopped him. Boom! Shun Baixin was extremely dissatisfied with Lin Sun, so he didn't listen to Lin Sun's advice at all. He took out his golden spear and hacked at Mujing and the others in the distance. The sharp golden spear shadow swept across the sky. It was extremely shocking. But before he could get close, a mystical Buddhist light and a restrictive aura appeared in the void, producing a terrifying suppressive force. With a bang, the spear shadow exploded, and Shun Baixin was sent flying. "Ha!" At the critical moment, Lin Sun's words were like thunder in spring. He waved his sleeves, and a piece of bright light turned into spiritual tattoos all over the sky, which dissolved the Buddha's light. At the same time, Luo Jia stretched out his hand and pulled Shun Baixuan's body back. "Motherf *Ker, this damn seal is way too scary." Shun Baixin broke out in a cold sweat, and his face turned ugly. Just now, he felt as if he was about to be completely suppressed and suffocated. This made him realize the severity of the situation, and he no longer dared to act recklessly. "If you act rashly again, I won't save you next time." Lin Sun frowned and glanced at Shun Baixin. Shun Baixin felt quite uncomfortable being reprimanded like this, but after all, he had just been saved by Lin Sun, so he couldn't refute. He muttered in his heart, "What are you so proud of? I'll find a chance to save you once in the future, and then let you have a taste of being reprimanded and scolded." "Lin Sun, we have to hurry up. They want to subdue the dark blood phoenix in the Buddha's niche. Once they succeed, we won't have a chance anymore." Miss Li's expression was solemn. Mujing and the others didn't even care about the life and death of their companions. It was conceivable that they were determined to obtain the existence in the Black Buddha's niche. This was not good. According to Luo Jia's senses, the remnant soul of the dark blood phoenix was also silent in the Buddha's niche. If the people of Ksitagarbha temple got it first, the consequences were bound to be bad. Lin Sun nodded. He also realized the seriousness of the situation. Clatter, he took a deep breath and made a decision. With a wave of his sleeve, several bronze formation flags swept out and disappeared into the void in an instant. These were the formation flags of the king's 4 symbols. What Lin Sun was doing now was to break the formation with the formation, so that he could rush into the depths of the ancient temple in the shortest time possible. However, there was also a drawback. These formation flags would be damaged when breaking the formation, which was also the reason why Lin Sun was reluctant to use them at the beginning. But now was not the time to care about this. If the formation flags were damaged, they could be refined again. If the opportunity here was taken away by the opponents, it would really be like drawing water with a wicker basket. Boom! Soon, the formation flags produced a miraculous effect. Rolling spiritual tattoo formations spread out and collided with the innate divine restriction that covered this place. Let's go! Lin Sun led the way. However, not long after they moved forward, a shocking scene happened. The power of restriction that covered the entire dilapidated ancient temple seemed to have been completely awakened, and Buddha's light surged up to the sky. The Buddha's light was grand and blazing, but it was as black as the eternal night, giving people an extremely oppressive and terrifying sense of suppression. At the same time, a bell rang, like a warning to the world or the majestic chanting of the Buddha, shrouding the world in an indescribable solemn atmosphere. Lin Sun was shocked. This was definitely not caused by him breaking the formation. It's them. Soon, Lin Sun and others all noticed that there was an amazing phenomenon emerging on Muzheng and other descendants of Kitagarbha Temple. An illusory and mysterious Buddhist scripture surged into appearance above Muzheng, and it emanated strings of dense and strange words. Every single word seemed as if they were made from black jade, and they flowed brilliantly with a Buddhist glow as they enveloped the Buddhist shrine. Above the heads of the other 4 monks in black, a skanda pestle branded with a black lotus pattern appeared. A black copper lamp inscribed with strange Buddha's light. A Bodhi tree that seemed to be made of bronze and jade. A jade archive of Buddha as round as a full moon. All the illusory phenomena were releasing Buddha's light, and together with the Buddhist scripture above Muzheng's head, they shrouded the Buddha's niche. Obviously, they wanted to take away this thing, and they were about to succeed. The Buddha's niche was originally motionless, but at this time, it burst out with terrifying Buddha's light. It was like a burning fire, illuminating the universe. On the other hand, dense markings of the Tao surged into appearance on the body of the dark-blood dark phoenix that was curled up like a divine fetus, had its wings retracted, and seemed to be in deathly silence. It transformed into blazing black flames, and it seemed as if it was about to awaken from its deathly silence. This series of movements was so shocking that it triggered the fluctuation of the power of restriction in the entire ancient temple. These damn bald donkeys, they're all crazy. Shun Baixin cursed. What should we do? Luo Jiao was very anxious and couldn't calm down. Let's rush over first. Lin Sun gritted his teeth. The restriction of the ancient temple was fully activated, which doubled the pressure on him. He had to exert all his strength to break the formation. However, just as they arrived at the area where the Buddha's niche was, before they could act, they heard a cry of surprise. They saw Muzheng and the others stumbling back as if they had been struck by lightning. Their expressions kept changing, and they seemed to be in a sorry state. At the same time, a black shadow suddenly rushed out of the Buddha's niche, and as if it had teleported, it swept into the depths of the ancient temple and disappeared in the blink of an eye. The Buddha's niche was empty, and there was no sign of the dark blood phoenix. Lin Sun and the others were also stunned. This change had happened too suddenly, and they were caught off guard. Damn it! We're just one step away. A monk in black clenched his teeth, his face full of resentment. This Buddha's fetus not only contains the power left by ancestor Duji, but also fused with the divine blood of the dark blood phoenix. It's extremely magical and incredible. It's an unprecedented Buddha's fetus, and we can't force it. Mu Zheng's expression was as calm as an ancient well. Fortunately, it can't escape from here. We still have a chance to bring it back to the sect. Speaking of this, Mu Zheng's expression changed slightly. Only then did he realize that he was so focused on subduing the target that he didn't notice that Lin Sun and the others had already arrived. At the same time, Lin Sun and the others were shocked. A Buddha's fetus fused with the divine blood of the dark blood phoenix? What a magical existence it was! Only Miss Lu seemed to have guessed the existence, and she murmured involuntarily, "The legend is true." After the holy monk Du Ji of the Kitagarbha temple defeated the dark blood phoenix here, he didn't leave. Instead, he chose a strange way to make an exchange with the dark blood phoenix. Together, they performed some kind of forbidden technique in an attempt to give birth to an unprecedented life. Perhaps the thing enshrined and nurtured in the Buddha's niche is this kind of creature. All of a sudden, Lin Sun and the others couldn't stay calm. They also realized the real purpose of Mu Zheng and the others. They wanted to subdue the creature bred by the holy monk and the dark blood phoenix, which was regarded as the Buddha's fetus by them. "My 4 junior brothers, I'll leave this place to you." Mu Zheng's expression was indifferent. He glanced at Lin Sun and the others, then rushed to the deepest part of the ancient temple. At the same time, the 4 monks in black stepped forward, all of them looking stern and ruthless as they blocked Lin Sun and the others. At this moment, Miss Lu was even more anxious than Loka. She wasn't as calm and composed as before. She said quickly, "Lin Sun, you go after Mu Zheng. I'll deal with these guys with them. We must be quick. The Buddha's fetus hides an unprecedented secret. We can't let Mu Zheng succeed." "All right." Lin Sun took a deep breath and began to act. Boom! The 4 monks in black rushed out without hesitation to kill Lin Sun. Each of them was extremely powerful, many times more powerful than the monks in black that Lin Sun and the others had killed before. Without a doubt, these 4 were the top figures in the Kitagarbha temple. Even if they weren't as powerful as Mu Zheng, they were definitely not far off. "Bald donkey! Your opponent is me." Shun Baixian couldn't hold it in any longer. He let out an earth-shattering roar, his body surging with golden light as he pounced. Clang! At the same time, Loka also made a move. He immediately used the terrifying holy weapon, the absolute demon sword. When the battle broke out, Lin Sun didn't get entangled. He used the ice dragon steps to easily break free from the encirclement, then rushed to the depths of the ancient temple at an unbelievable speed. Chapter 969. Lin Sun, Loka, and Shun Baixian all realized the urgency and seriousness of the problem after knowing Miss Li's attitude. Therefore, no one hesitated or neglected at the beginning of the battle. Whoosh! Lin Sun's figure flashed and rushed forward. The depths of the ancient temple were very mysterious. The winding path was covered with darkness along the way as if there was no end. Moreover, the power of the restriction was omnipresent, so Lin Sun had to be cautious when he rushed forward. As he went deeper, the scene changed. The earth was full of traces of the battle, including claw marks, palm marks, and ashes left after being burned. Along the way, there were shocking scenes of devastation everywhere. It could be foreseen that in ancient times, a peerless battle had taken place here, and the traces left behind could not be erased after the erosion of time. Not long after, Lin Sun saw an old mottled bell, which had long been broken and stained with golden blood. The bloodstain had obviously dried up for many years, but when Lin Sun looked at it, he felt a sacred breath coming to his face. It was like an abyss or a prison, which made his soul throb and show signs of collapse. The blood of a saint? Otherwise, how could it still have such a terrifying aura after countless years of drying up? Lin Sun was shocked and hurriedly ran the meditating magic, not daring to perceive it again. From here on, the atmosphere began to change, with an ominous and depressing breath that made people panic. Boom! Lightning flashed, and strands of thunder intertwined. This was the power of the restriction. It was terrifying, and the thunder and lightning were full of destructive breath. Lin Sun had been cautious enough, but he was still touched by the thunder and lightning. A bloody wound was torn on his shoulder, and a trace of obscure destructive power spread in the wound at an amazing speed. Lin Sun ran the power of swallowing star obliteration way, and then the obscure destructive breath was refined. The power of the restriction is getting stronger and stronger. Lin Sun looked solemn. He felt a fatal threat. Buzz. Without any hesitation, he took out the wordless pagoda. The pagoda made of divine iron was like glass, emitting golden brilliance to protect Lin Sun. At the same time, the snow-white broken blade swept through the air, with illusory luster flowing on the blade, ready to attack. After doing all this, Lin Sun felt a little relieved and moved on. Along the way, the power of prohibition fluctuated, and the Buddha's light was as dark as ink. It was as frightening as the eternal dark night, and it attacked Lin from time to time. Even with Lin Sun's attainments in spiritual tattoos, he couldn't completely resolve it. He could only avoid or resist it. The power was too terrible. Fortunately, the wordless pagoda was extremely magical. The flowing golden divine light helped Lin Sun offset many fatal tribulations. Otherwise, he couldn't have arrived here at all. Not long after, Lin Sun finally found the cross of Ksitigarbha Temple. It was shining brilliantly, and was helping Mu Zheng to dissolve the restrictive power he saw along the way. Seeming to have noticed Lin Sun's gaze, Mu Zheng suddenly turned around. When he saw Lin Sun, his eyes narrowed slightly, and his clear eyebrows were filled with a touch of coldness. Especially when he saw the wordless pagoda above Lin Sun's head, he showed a rare look of surprise, and his expression became dignified. In the end, he withdrew his gaze, turned around, and continued forward. He seemed to be unwilling to be delayed, and he quickened his pace. But Lin Sun sensed from Mu Zheng's expression just now that this guy wanted to kill him. As a Buddhist practitioner, he is so indifferent and heartless. The successor of Ksitigarbha Temple is really different from the Buddhist practitioners in the world. Lin Sun frowned. Immediately, he didn't think too much and hurried forward. This was like a silent competition and contest. Both Mu Zheng and Lin Sun were trying their best to move forward and reach the end of the ancient temple. Lin Sun pondered as he moved forward. This ancient temple seemed to be dilapidated and small, but there was a secret hidden in it. The power of prohibition distributed in it could be said to be the work of the gods, which made Lin Sun feel extremely amazed and even a little obsessed. He even suspected that if he could thoroughly understand all the mysteries of this restriction, his attainments in spiritual tattoos would definitely undergo a transformation by leaps and bounds. Miss Lu is wrong. To enter this place, it's not enough to understand spiritual tattoos, but also to have the protection of holy treasures. Otherwise, even the old monsters of the King realm can't move an inch. They dare not step into the minefield and are doomed to die. After sensing and exploring along the way, Lin Sun came to a conclusion that this ancient temple was very likely to be covered by a holy formation, and this formation had been broken and abandoned for countless years, losing its source of power. Otherwise, even with the protection of the wordless pagoda, it might have been in trouble long ago, and it would be impossible for him to reach here. After a full 30 minutes, they finally reached the end of the ancient temple. There was no power of prohibition in this area, but there were Buddhist lamps floating in the air. The bright and clear light flowed, illuminating the world and giving it a holy and solemn atmosphere. That's Lin Sun's pupils shrank. At the end of the place, there was a lotus seat as white as jade, crystal clear and flawless. On the lotus seat, a figure was sitting upright, emitting a dazzling light. It was just like a Buddha or a Bodhisattva. Because it was too bright, Lin Sun couldn't see clearly, but he felt an indescribable light and sacred power shrouding this place, making people have an impulse to kneel down and worship. At this time, Mu Zheng was standing there, with the Alaya bowl in his hand full of black Buddha's light. Around him, there were many illusory Buddha figures, which formed a sharp contrast with the white lotus seat and the figure sitting upright on it. One black and one white. Just like yin and yang, it produced a strong visual impact. This. Mu Jing seemed to find something and cried out involuntarily. At the same time, Lin Sun finally saw clearly that there was another person on the white lotus seat, in addition to the bright Buddha figure. It was a woman bathed in divine flames, with her black hair hanging down like a waterfall. She stood in front of the Buddha figure in a gesture of risking her life to help. The two were almost close to each other. The Buddha frowned and glared into the distance. The woman lowered her eyes, with a touch of anxiety and determination on her face. On the other hand, there was another figure not too far away from them. His entire body was covered in a layer of a strange golden sheen, and his figure seemed to be thin yet emanated a boundlessly lofty feeling. He filled the heavens and the earth and pressed down upon the earth, and he seemed like the one and only overlord of the heavens and the earth. The most terrifying thing was that the mysterious golden figure was holding a huge halberd. It pierced through the jade-white lotus throne, the woman's chest, and the Buddha's heart. This was a fatal blow. Just one look at it made people desperate and terrified. Lin Sun's scalp was numb. In a trance, he seemed to see a golden figure descending from the sky and arriving at this ancient temple one day in ancient times. Before long, a shocking battle broke out here. The Buddha was angry and drove the white lotus seat to fight against the enemy. The Buddha's light shone all over the world. However, it couldn't resist the suppression of the golden figure holding the big halberd. At the critical moment, the woman appeared and helped the Buddha block a blow at the risk of her life. Unexpectedly, the enemy was too horrible. Under the halberd, the lotus seat was broken, the woman died, and the Buddha's heart was pierced. Dying, the woman was anxious and helpless, and the Buddha was full of grief and indignation. Unconsciously, Lin Sun was soaked in cold sweat. Although he guessed a trace of truth, he couldn't help but feel it was very unreal. Moreover, this place was suffused with terrifying killing intent that covered heaven and earth. This was killing intent that had been left behind for who knew how many years, the unmatched might of a divine Tao expert. If it weren't for the wordless pagoda, Lin Sun would have been frightened and his soul would have collapsed and died. At the same time, Mu Zheng was also very uncomfortable. His whole body was stiff, and his face was full of difficulty. His hands and feet were trembling. If it weren't for the power of Alaya bow, he would have been unable to hold on. Clang! The sound of a bell that was like a warning to the world resounded. The killing intent and pressure that filled this expanse of the heavens and the earth vanished, and the atmosphere became pure and solemn. Looking into the distance, the figure of the Buddha and the figure of the woman had disappeared. Even the golden figure that seemed like a ruler was nowhere to be found. It was as if they had never existed, and what they saw just now was just some nightmarish illusion. It turns out that ancestor Duji was killed. But why did the Black Phoenix Holy Empress, why did she sacrifice her life to help? Mu Jing murmured, as if he didn't understand. He frowned. Didn't the elders in the sect say that they were mortal enemies? Why? Sure enough. Hearing this, Lin Sun couldn't calm down. He had guessed it before, but he wasn't sure. But now, he had to believe it. The Buddha and the woman who appeared on the white jade lotus platform just now were Duji, the holy monk of the Ksitigarbha temple in ancient times, and the dark blood Black Phoenix who had set foot on the divine path. Wasn't it said that Duji had killed the dark blood Black Phoenix and sealed her here? But why did they fight side by side and die? Could it be that the rumor was false? Lin soon realized that even the secret Miss Lu knew was just a rumor, which was very different from the truth. But if it was true, who was the golden figure who killed them? These were two mighty figures of the divine path, but they had been killed in a single blow. This was too unbelievable. Chapter 970. Sages. In Lin Sun's impression, sages were like gods. They had the ability to penetrate the sky and the earth. They stood above the sky, lived as long as the ages, shone as the sun and the moon, and were almost immortal. The saint realm was the cultivation realm that countless practitioners dreamed of. Since ancient times, no one knew how many earth-shattering figures had died in front of this path, but they had no chance to set foot in it. It was too lofty, like a legend. Since ancient times, only a small group of people could reach this realm. But even so, it still could not stop countless cultivators from seeking and climbing it wave after wave. But now, in this dilapidated ancient temple, two powerful figures of the saint realm died here, and they were killed by a halberd. How could people not be shocked? One was the holy monk Duji from the Kitagarbha temple, and the other was the holy queen of the dark phoenix bloodline. But both of them were killed here. This was too terrible. Lin Sun couldn't imagine what kind of terrifying realm the golden figure had reached in order to achieve this. He felt cold all over, realizing that there must be a big secret in this ancient temple in ancient times, so that the two sages would be killed. At the same time, Mu Zheng's expression also changed. Obviously, he was also shocked by the scenes he had just seen. But in next to no time, both of them were jolted awake, and their gazes shot towards the lotus platform that was pure white like jade and emanated a divine aura. Unknowingly when, a withered and scorched black tree root had appeared. It was on the verge of rotting into ashes, and it was extremely unremarkable. But both Lin Sun and Mu Jing realized that this was a treasure. Otherwise, how could it appear on the sacred white lotus seat? Whoosh! Mu Jing moved at the first time. His mountain-like figure rushed to the white lotus seat as fast as lightning. He stretched out his arm, and an illusory big handprint surrounded by black Buddha light grabbed down. But Lin Sun was faster than him. He ran ice dragon steps to the extreme and arrived first like a flash of light. At the same time, a black golden light swept out of the wordless pagoda. The black golden light not only had an incredible suppressive effect, but also swept and absorbed everything. It was extremely magical. Back off! Mu Zheng's expression changed slightly, and he shouted. He took out the Alaya bowl in his hand to block the golden Tao light. His figure flashed, and a grand Buddha seal condensed in his palms and fingers, oppressing the void and attacking Lin Sun. Obviously, he couldn't tolerate Lin Sun snatching the withered and scorched root first. Humph! Lin Sun snorted. Because the broken blade that had been waiting for a long time struck out, and it emitted a peerless brilliance that was lustrous like snow as it collided head-on with the attack. In the blink of an eye, the great battle broke out. In the face of fortuitous encounters, there was absolutely no need for a reason to trigger a battle of life and death. In order to get the opportunity, both Lin Sun and Mu Jing used their strongest means at the first time. Boom! Lin Sun stepped in the void, and his broken sword demonstrated the essence of 6 cuts of Tianyuan. He was decisive in killing, and his momentum was like that of a demon. It could be said that peerless figures like Li Qinghuan and Mu Jianting would probably encounter danger at the first possible moment. However, unexpectedly, this Mu Zheng was exceptionally powerful. He was actually able to forcefully block this attack. As one of the 18 disciples of Ksitagarbha Temple, he was not inferior to Lin Sun, and could even be said to be amazing. In the face of Lin Sun's attack, his expression was indifferent and solemn. His tall and sturdy body emitted black Buddha light, and he moved like lightning, like a furious arhat with the power to subdue dragons and tigers. Boom! He held the 18 prayer beads in his hand, and as he rotated, he condensed Buddha seals that seemed to be made of black immortal gold one after another. They struck the void, emitting the sound of wind and thunder, and actually resolved the killing power of the broken blade. At the same time, the holy treasures in their hands were also fighting. The wordless pagoda flowed with thousands of golden Tao light, which had the power to suppress the universe, and the void collapsed with continuous roars. However, the Alaya bowl was also not inferior. Phantoms of Buddha emerged, chanting in Sanskrit and releasing infinite light that changed the color of heaven and earth. The two supreme treasures restrained each other and were inextricably entangled. This monk is really not simple. Lin Sun was awestruck, and his moves became more and more violent. His whole body was like a burning stove, and his power rose to the extreme. Taoism Peer, with your ability, you can be regarded as the top figure in the younger generation of the world. If you don't know when to stop, you are bound to die today. Mu Jing frowned. Although his words were calm, they carried a hint of threat. His power became more and more powerful. His black frock was fluttering, and his face was solemn like a Buddha who conquered the world. Monk, I also warn you that there is no hatred between you and me. If you persist in going about things the wrong way, don't force me to kill you. Lin Sun responded coldly. With the secret method of Yazi's wrath, his power suddenly rose a lot. Holding the broken blade, he was like a devil descending to the world. Just that aura alone was enough to cause the nearby void to wail. Taoism Peer, your killing desire is so strong. If you don't restrain it, you are bound to fall into the wrong path of the devil and become a heretic who brings disaster to the world. Mu Zheng's expression was neither sad nor happy, and he was fearless. His voice was like a great bell. Buddha said that if I don't go to hell, who will? Today, let me help you. Bang! A string of prayer beads in his palm glowed, condensing into numerous black lotus flowers in the void, and then they rustled as they fell. Every black lotus was filled with brilliant Buddha's light, and they emitted a miraculous power of salvation and purification, grand and vast. At the same time, Mu Zheng's expression was compassionate like a Buddha as he chanted. Black Buddhist scriptures appeared above his head and flipped open in the void, and strings of Buddhist scriptures drifted out. This was the ultimate inheritance of Ksitigarbha Temple, Universal Salvation Method. Once this method was executed, it could suppress all enemies, overcome calamities, and purify all evil. It was like a Buddha descending to the world to suppress demons. It could be clearly seen that along with Mu Zheng's chanting, the shadows of Buddhas actually appeared in the falling black lotus flowers, and they emitted boundless Buddha's light. The miraculous thing was that the Buddha's light was as black as the eternal night. In an instant, Lin Sun felt an extremely great pressure. Since he'd started cultivating until now, it was the first time he'd fought a Buddhist cultivator. The Tao arts and energy grasped by Mu Zheng were unlike the other cultivators in the world, and they were miraculous, terrifying, and possessed unbelievable might. Moreover, Mu Zheng wasn't an ordinary figure, and his combat strength was so formidable that he could at least compare with figures like Yu Lingkong and Ji Xingyao. Lin Sun shouted loudly while his figure surged with a clear glow of the Tao, and he activated the broken blade. Peerlessly fierce saber chi shot out like a myriad of arrows, and they crisscrossed together in a dazzling and resplendent manner. Pooh! A black lotus exploded into pieces. The strange thing was that the shattered petals didn't disperse, and they condensed into Buddhist characters instead. They emanated the glow of salvation and floated in the void. Pooh! 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 Along with the shattering of numerous black lotuses, more and more Buddhist characters appeared, and they formed a dense mass that couldn't be destroyed or expelled. It was extremely strange. Lin Sun realized that the situation wasn't good. Even though his combat strength was formidable, he lacked the experience of fighting Buddhist cultivators, and he didn't know the slightest thing about the energy they grasped. For example, these strange Buddhist characters of salvation were condensed from the miraculous energy of the Buddhist Grand Tao, and they were like nothingness that couldn't be destroyed. Mu Jing chanted sutras, and his voice resounded through the world like the morning bell and evening drum. His expression was solemn, and his whole body was covered with holy and deep black Buddhist light. He was like a divine mountain that suppressed the hell, and his power was formidable. Black lotuses surged out of the prayer beads like a tide, and they drifted down in the void. The image of the Buddha sitting inside was shocking, and it had a shocking deterrent force. This was the universal salvation method, the supreme Buddhist method of the Ksitigarbha temple, and it was used to suppress all evil spirits. But as time went by, Mu Zheng's expression became solemn. Even though the universal salvation method was powerful, it consumed a lot of energy. He had thought that he could suppress Lin Sun in the blink of an eye and send him to the afterlife. He didn't expect that Lin Sun was still fighting with matchless courage. What a terrifying foundation this guy has. Could he be a peerless genius cultivated by some sacred place? Mu Zheng was shocked. Without hesitation, he ran his strength to the limit, and the speed of turning the prayer beads and chanting sutras became faster and faster. Like a storm, a powerful army, the world was filled with horrible killing intent. Black lotuses floated in the air, with the image of the Buddha in them. This scene should have been very holy and solemn, like a miracle. But at this time, there was a deadly killing intent that made the world change color. The power of salvation is really hard to deal with. In the battle, Lin Sun frowned. He felt the heavy pressure, and he couldn't get rid of it. The black lotuses were endless, and they shrouded him, making it impossible for him to dodge. Moreover, even if they were smashed, the black lotuses didn't completely dissipate. Instead, they turned into Buddhist characters full of the universal salvation method and floated in the void. As far as the eye could see, there were hundreds of Buddhist characters, which seemed to be made of black gold, floating in all directions like a Buddhist sutra. It was extremely strange. For Lin Sun, the black lotuses were not terrible. What really made him feel threatened was these unbreakable Buddhist characters. It's time to end it. Suddenly, Mu Zheng's eyes glowed, and his momentum was unparalleled. Universal salvation method, expiate souls here, so that there will be no demons in the world. Boom! Along with the voice, the Buddhist characters floating in the void suddenly converged and turned into the form of a Buddhist sutra, pressing down on Lin Sun. Buddha's light flowed, and the characters in the Buddhist sutra were like pearls, releasing dazzling purifying light. In an instant, Lin Sun was covered in it. There was no way to dodge or resist. Any means to kill him were useless. He couldn't defeat this magical Buddhist sutra. Seeing this, Mu Zheng put his palms together and chanted the name of Buddha. This was the strongest attack of the universal salvation method, expiation of the heavens. If it was used by a holy monk who had stepped into the divine path, it would be enough to release all the living beings in a great city from purgatory in an instant. Mu Zheng knew that although Lin Sun had a peerless talent, he still didn't understand the terrible power of the universal salvation method. At this moment, he was doomed to die. He looked into the distance, where the wordless pagoda was entangled with the Alaya bowl, bursting with holy brilliance. In the end, Mu Zheng suppressed his inner desire and strode to the white jade lotus seat on the other side. The wordless pagoda was a holy treasure, which made Mu Zheng tempted. But he knew that when Lin Sun died, this treasure would be his sooner or later. The most urgent thing now was to take away a withered root on the white jade lotus seat. If he guessed right, the root was probably the legendary root of Bodhi. Chapter 971. Like symbols, black Buddhist characters covered Lin Sun's whole body. The Buddhist characters released the power of Du-yi, immersing into Lin Sun's skin and rushing into his body. It produced a terrifying purification power, giving him the illusion that his body was burning. This was the power of expiation, which originated from Pu-ji Du-yi method. Lin Sun finally realized the horror of this power, but he didn't panic because at this moment, the power of star obliteration devouring Tao ran automatically. Whoosh! In a twinkling of an eye, the mysterious and terrible black Buddha characters were swept away like a whirlwind. They were completely refined and couldn't contaminate Lin Sun anymore. Undoubtedly, in the essence of the power of Tao, The power of was obviously incomparable to that of star obliteration devouring Tao. Lin Sun had a glimmer of understanding. The reason why he was suppressed before was that he didn't understand the power of Buddhism, so he was caught unprepared. But now, he was no longer afraid. In the eyes of Buddhist cultivators, the Bodhi root was a first-class divine object in the world. It was too wonderful for words. It contained the essence and mystery of the Tao of heaven and had incredible magical effects. In ancient times there was a Bodhi tree that stood in the world. Every branch and every leaf could evolve into a world, just like 3,000 worlds. It was extremely magical. According to Mu Zheng's knowledge, in the primordial times, there was an expert in the Ksitigarbha temple who merely relied on a Bodhi leaf to comprehend the supreme profundity of the Mahayana Kasyapa Tao. He attained great enlightenment on the spot and smiled while pinching a flower, thus stepping into the saint realm with a single step. If this withered root had something to do with the Bodhi tree, its value would be amazing. As a Buddhist cultivator, Mu Zheng immediately perceived the unique breath of this withered root, which made him unable to control his inner emotions and produce a strong desire. Therefore, he ignored Lin Sun and the wordless pagoda. Instead, he targeted this thing at the first time. Whoosh! Without hesitation, he took action. He was determined to get this thing. Monk, you are too impatient. However, right at the same time, a piercingly cold voice resounded, and accompanying this voice was a sharp blade that was as white as snow. Fast. Too fast. Mu Zheng was just thinking about how to get that piece of dead wood, so he was caught unprepared. Puff. A cold light flashed, and an unparalleled saber chi swept out. Immediately, blood spurted out. Mu Zheng's right arm, which he had grabbed, was chopped off. It had to be said that Mu Zheng's strength was extremely terrifying. At this critical moment, he had retreated explosively. Although he had lost an arm, he had narrowly managed to preserve his life. If it was anyone else, that person would have probably been killed on the spot. You! Mu Zheng's face twitched in pain. But what was even more unbelievable was that Lin Sun was safe and sound after suffering the power of all heaven's expiation. He almost couldn't believe his eyes. That was his most powerful trump card. He believed that in the entire ancient desolation realm, even the peerless geniuses in the saint-hidden lands would be killed if they were hit by it. But now, however, he had failed in this move. Monk, don't be impatient. Lin Sun stood in front of the white jade lotus with a cold look. His figure was tall and straight like a mountain. How did you do it? Mu Zheng's expression changed. He had always been calm and indifferent, but at this moment, he could no longer maintain his calm. He took back the Araya bowl and put it in front of him to defend, because Lin Sun's strength was completely beyond his expectation. Childish. Do you think I will tell you? Lin Sun smiled. He didn't immediately kill Mu Zheng and took back the wordless pagoda. Mu Zheng quickly calmed down and stopped the bleeding of his broken arm. He stared at Lin Sun like lightning. According to the ancient records of Ksitigarbha temple, people like you are already regarded as heretics and are destined to be killed. Heretics? Lin Sun narrowed his black eyes and sneered. I've also heard that Ksitigarbha temple calls itself the Traveler of Misfortune and takes eradicating the world's heretics as its own responsibility. Anyone targeted by you will be hunted to death. But I didn't expect that you would define heretics in this way. Oh, is this the style of Ksitigarbha temple? Isn't it too shameless? Lin Sun's words were full of sarcasm and disdain. Mu Zheng's expression didn't change. He chanted the name of Buddha. Since ancient times, Ksitigarbha temple has been in hell and is destined to be understood by most people. Whether you are shameless or not, you can't change the fact that you are a heretic. Lin Sun raised his eyebrows. This was not the way to slander Mu Zheng. This was completely incriminating. How dare you? Suddenly, Mu Zheng seemed to notice something. He immediately became furious and shouted out loud. Why wouldn't I dare? Since you are stalling for time, I will accompany you to stall for time. What's wrong with that? Lin Sun said with a smile. As he spoke, his figure flashed and rushed to the white jade lotus seat. He waved his sleeve and was about to collect the dead wood. Moreover, it was extremely fast and smooth. Obviously, Lin Sun had long been prepared. When Mu Jing noticed something wrong, Lin Sun's figure had already been on the white jade lotus seat. You're courting death. Mu Jing was completely angry. His whole body was surging with Black Buddha's light. He rushed to Lin Sun like a Buddha glaring at the world with amazing power. Boom! But before he could get close, the white jade lotus seat suddenly produced a layer of sacred fluctuation, which shook his whole body out. Because the impact was too fierce, after being shaken away, Mu Jing saw stars and couldn't help coughing up a mouthful of blood. But all this couldn't replace the shock and anger in Mu Jing's heart. How could it be? I am the successor of Ksitigarbha Temple. Why is the relic left by Patriarch Duji against me? The white jade lotus seat glowed, sacred and unpredictable. On the lotus seat, Lin Sun had successfully collected the dead wood, which made Mu Jing feel more and more uncomfortable, and his face was extremely livid. He was only one step away, but it led to such a result. This was a big blow. But soon, his look became strange. He found something strange. Lin Sun seemed to be in more pain than him? On the white jade lotus seat, Lin Sun, who had just collected the dead wood, was trembling all over at the moment. His lips were trembling as if he had been struck by lightning. And on his body, wisps of golden light as fine as the hair of an ox spread, as if his skin was torn inch by inch. It was strange and terrible. That aura, suddenly, Mu Jing recalled that in the illusion he had just seen, a golden figure that seemed to be the ruler of heaven and earth had appeared. With a halberd in hand, it had pierced through the white jade lotus platform, the Black Phoenix Divine Empress, and Grandmaster Du Ji. At this time, the aura emitted by the wisps of fine golden light was exactly the same as that of the golden figure. Obviously, it came from the same sect. Suddenly, a strange expression appeared on Mu Jing's face. There was joy, fear, and a kind of unspeakable mockery. He finally understood. Even if the dead wood was the root of Bodhi, it must have suffered a terrible blow from the golden figure, so it showed a withered and broken appearance. Moreover, although this thing had not been completely destroyed, it contained the fighting power belonging to the golden figure. In short, it seemed that Lin Sun had obtained a lucky chance first, but in fact, it was a killing tribulation. It's not that the time hasn't come yet. The principle of the cycle of cause and effect is really wonderful. Mu Jing laughed, and all the grievances, resentment and confusion in his heart were swept away. Instead, he was very glad that he didn't seize this thing at the first time. He stationed outside the white jade lotus seat, began to repair his broken arm silently, and waited calmly. As long as Lin Sun was in danger, he would rush up at the first time and take away the dead wood in his hand. It could be foreseen that at that time, the mysterious golden power in the dead wood was destined to be absorbed by Lin Sun, and what was left for him was a real root of Bodhi. Perhaps this thing was seriously damaged, but as long as he brought it back to the sect, there would be a way to recover it. The more he thought about it, the more relaxed Mu Jing felt. He even had a feeling that God favored him. Lin Sun was really uncomfortable at the moment. Wisps of strong and overbearing golden power collided in his body, full of terrible and boundless destructive aura, which he couldn't bear at all. His body was being destroyed at an amazing speed inside and outside. Damn it, it's that guy. Lin Sun was also a little flustered and exasperated. He thought that he had finally gained the upper hand, but he never thought that what he seized was a killing tribulation. Moreover, he also realized the source of the golden power and the seriousness of the problem. In ancient times, that guy killed 2 sages with a halberd. It could be imagined how terrifying his power was. Although the remaining golden energy in the dead wood was almost negligible, It was not something that Lin Sun could bear at present at all. Remember it! Don't forget it. Just when Lin Sun was in great pain, there seemed to be two different voices in a trance. One voice was majestic and solemn, deafening, like the sonorous sound of the Great Way. The other voice was anxious, like the voice of gold and jade, with a unique magnetism, like the chirping of immortal phoenixes. In an instant, the figures of Saints Solitude and Black Phoenix, Holy Empress, appeared in Lin Sun's mind. Their figures were pierced through. Before dying, the former was resentful and glared into the distance, while the latter lowered her eyes, anxious and unwilling. Lin Sun was shocked. Were they reminding him to remember this golden power? Boom! At the same time, Lin Sun only felt that a mysterious wave of vitality suddenly emerged from the dead wood in his hand and rushed into his body. Moreover, on the decayed and dilapidated surface of the dead wood, there was a little dreamy green luster, as if it was about to recover from the wither. What was going on? Before Lin Sun could figure it out, there was a bang in his mind, and the world shook. In his days, he arrived before a vigorous ancient tree. This tree's branches towered into the sky, its leaves seemed as if they were made from verdant jade, and it emanated a myriad of green rays of light that dyed the heavens and the earth in a divine atmosphere. A monk with a strange and unsophisticated appearance was sitting under the tree, deducing the Dharma. His figure was bathed in the holy Buddha's light, like a legendary bodhisattva. Beside him, a slender figure was standing, bowing her head and saying something to the monk. Her black hair was tied up, revealing a beautiful side face. Holy light similarly scattered about her body, forming a vivid and lifelike black phoenix. It combed its wings on that ancient tree branch, vivid and lifelike. Chapter 972. The ancient tree was swaying, its branches and leaves were green, and the green clouds were overflowing. A divine aura pervaded the air, and a lifelike black phoenix stood on top of it, leisurely combing its flame-like wings. Under the ancient tree, the monk was performing the Tao, and the woman lowered her head to communicate with him. Both of them were bathed in the holy light, as transcendent as the light rain of flying immortals, dreamy and illusory. Lin Sun stood in the distance, in a trance. Time seemed to go back to ancient times. Everything in front of him seemed to be in the sacred Pure Land. This was indeed a sacred place. Lin Sun was even sure that the monk with a simple and strange appearance and the beautiful woman with a transcendent bearing were Holy Monk Du Ji and Divine Empress Black Phoenix, respectively. As for that ancient tree that was overflowing with green light, it might be the Bodhi wood. The sound of chanting made Lin Sun immersed in it, and he couldn't think about other things at all. If you want to transcend adversity, you can only combine the profound meaning of Gaya Sutra and Nirvana. Maybe you can create a sacred book that surpasses the past. From today on, I will perform the Tao with you here. If I can achieve my wish, I won't regret it even if I die 9 times. Great! Under the Bodhi tree, Du Ji and Divine Empress Black Phoenix talked. Every word was like the morning bell and evening drum, revealing the mystery of the Tao. Flowers bloomed and fell, and time changed. The two were unaware of the passage of time. They deduced the Tao with each other and described their understanding and cognition of the Tao. Profound tunes of the Tao reverberated throughout the heavens and the earth, causing the atmosphere here to become even more holy and peaceful. The Bodhi tree swayed, and green clouds drifted, as if it was also listening to the mystery of the Tao and comprehending the Tao and Tao of the two sages. Lin Sun had sat cross-legged on the ground, looking stupefied, and his consciousness muddled. All kinds of subtle truths of the Tao emerged in his heart. Time passed without him noticing, and he forgot the heaven, the earth, and the people. As for what he had comprehended, Lin Sun didn't know. There was a real meaning in it, and he forgot to explain it. Time passed, and several spring and autumn had passed in the blink of an eye. The Bodhi tree became more and more vigorous. Its trunk reached the sky, and its dense branches and leaves spread to the void in all directions, sprinkling hundreds of millions of green clouds. Under the tree, the monk and the woman occasionally talked, but they had become increasingly silent. Obviously, they'd arrived at a critical moment in the development of the Tao, and both of them were utilizing great willpower and wisdom to deduce completely new Tao. Only when they had gained something in their hearts would they verify and communicate with each other. Lin Sun didn't notice all of this. His mind and body had completely revealed a strange state of chaos, and he was drowned by the profundities of the grand Tao that flowed like spring water. This was indeed an experience of comprehending the Tao that could be said to have transcended the past and present, and it was indescribably miraculous. It was as if he had traveled back in time to the ancient times and listened to the Tao and creation of two saints. It was filled with an inconceivable feeling. It was a pity that the essence Lin Sun listened to was limited to his own realm. He could only comprehend the essence of Tao below the king realm. The Tao and Dharma described by the two sages had already reached the level above the saint realm. However, Lin Sun was completely unaware of this. At this moment, he seemed to have completely forgotten himself and had no thoughts. His eyes, ears, nose, tongue, body, mind. Everything within his six senses was covered by the profundities of the grand Tao. Lin Sun didn't know how long it had been. Maybe it was a mortal reincarnation, or maybe it was just a moment. In a trance, Lin Sun felt something in his heart and suddenly woke up. Under the Bodhi tree in the distance, Du Ji's hair and beard were like snow. He was old and feeble, and his skin was like withered bark and cracked as if it was about to die. The Black Phoenix Divine Empress was similarly thin and haggard. Her beauty was gone, and her hair was streaked with white frost. Her beautiful and pure appearance showed signs of having one foot in the grave. What he saw in front of him made Lin Sun feel inexplicable emotions and unspeakable shock. The power of the passage of time and the sorrow of youth were vividly reflected at this moment. However, the eyes of Du Ji and Divine Empress were as bright as the starry sky, vast and clear. They looked at each other and both showed a transparent and perfect smile. Behind them, the trunk of the Bodhi tree was dilapidated, and its branches and leaves were peeling off. It was bare, and its vitality was dim, like a withered tree that was about to decay. But it was still vigorous, standing under the sky, like the backbone of the universe. After a myriad of years of deduction, the scripture we created has finally been perfected today. From today onwards, this profound technique that transcends the terrestrial scripture is bound to illuminate the ages and shine brilliantly. Du Ji's eyes were clear and carried a wisp of happiness and satisfaction. This scripture combines the mystery of the earth scripture and the art of extinction of our clan. It can indeed be called a unique technique beyond the past and the present. Divine Empress's tone suddenly changed when she said this. However, once this scripture comes out, it will shake the inherent inheritance of the earth scripture. Don't you worry that you will be regarded as a heretic? You should be clear that the Dizong Temple has been standing to this day because of the Dizong Temple's inheritance, the great earth scripture, which is the foundation of its orthodoxy. The scripture that you and I created, although derived from the great earth scripture, is completely different. Once this scripture is published and known by the Dizong Temple, even a holy monk like you is destined to be seen as a traitor and heretic. Du Ji smiled solemnly, and there was a sense of determination in his calm tone. If I become a demon, I will turn all the Buddhas in the world into demons. Divine Empress's eyes narrowed. Then she heard Du Ji continue, if I become a Buddha, there will be no demons in the world. Divine Empress was completely stunned. In the distance, Lin Sun was also shocked in his heart. These words were simply overbearing to the extreme. There was a great spirit of lawlessness and supremacy. It was truly impossible to believe that such words were actually spoken by a holy monk. If news of this were to spread, it would definitely cause boundless criticism and a storm. You have already understood and seen a higher realm. Divine Empress's expression had a trace of rare emotion. Duji smiled and said, "The time has come. Let's start." Okay. Immediately, they stood up and faced the sky. Their expressions became arrogant and detached, and a sacred rain of light gushed out from their bodies. Their original old faces, withered skin, snow-white hair, were all glowing with a layer of holy light. In the blink of an eye, they had recovered their former elegance. Du Ji put his palms together, and a grand sound of Tao came out from his lips, which resonated with heaven and earth. In the void, there were many wonderful flowers of Tao, and the light rain flew like flying. Divine Empress used her fingers as a pen and wrote in the void. One by one, Taoist characters with sacred luster poured out from her fingertips, which were dense like rain and turned into a sacred and immortal text. The sound of Tao and Taoist characters complemented each other and resonated between heaven and earth. In the blue sky, heavenly flowers fell. On the earth, golden light emerged. In the void, thousands of divine lights hung down, and thousands of auspicious lights fluttered, brilliant and blazing. Sometimes there was the sound of Buddha's chanting, and sometimes there was the sound of phoenixes' cries in the sky, showing a grand and boundless vision. Lin Sun was shocked and couldn't believe his eyes. Scriptures written by saints. He remembered some ancient legends. It was said that in ancient times, if a sage could open up a new Tao and method and write a scripture, it would lead to a vision from heaven, which represented a kind of immeasurable merit. It was an immortal achievement that was enough to leave one's name in history. Originally, Lin Sun thought it was a rumor, but now, he believed it. This scripture is created by you and me, which is beyond the earth scripture and the Black Phoenix annihilation. Today it is completed. How about calling it the Scripture of Silence? In the divine lights all over the sky, Du Ji said with a smile. He looked solemn, like a Buddha overlooking all living beings in the eyes of the world. It's not bold enough. The scripture created by you and me is enough to shock the world. Only when the word great is added can it reflect the essence of the scripture. Divine Empress's slender figure was bathed in the sacred light mist. She was like a dream, looking down on the world. The Scripture of Silence? Great. Du Ji laughed. Lin Sun couldn't calm down. He finally realized that the two saints sat in front of the Bodhi tree and worked together to create a scripture of the holy way after several years of deduction. Boom. However, at this time, there was a sudden change. Above the sky, the void collapsed and cracked open a boundless crack. At the same time, a spear full of supreme majesty swept out of the crack. Clang! The spear made a sound which made the world roar. An indescribable killing intent spread out, intertwining with the supreme power of Tao and law. In an instant, the flowers falling from the sky burst into pieces, the golden light on the ground collapsed, the divine lights in the void disappeared, and the auspicious light was torn apart. Everything showed the characteristics of destruction. It's finally here. Unexpectedly, Du Ji was very calm, as if he had already expected this. When we took this step, it was destined to be like this. None of the sages in ancient times were like this. Today, you and I have fulfilled our long-cherished wish, so we can give it a try. Divine Empress's eyes were clear, and her whole body exuded a terrible fighting intent. As you said, I won't regret even if I have to die 9 times. Du Ji put his palms together and his clothes fluttered. The two figures flashed and rushed to the sky. On the ground, the Bodhi tree swayed and rustled, as if it was wailing. All this happened so fast and so abruptly that Lin Sun was shocked. He didn't expect that a killing calamity would come like this. He looked up and saw that in the sky, the divine spirit was surging like the sea. It was so bright that he couldn't see the scene clearly at all. But Lin Sun knew that this was a killing calamity aimed at the two sages. It seemed that because they had taken a forbidden step on the road of Tao, or because they had created a scripture that had violated the taboo, they had provoked such a great calamity. When we took this step, it was destined to be like this. None of the sages in ancient times were like this. The meaning in this sentence is too horrible. Lin Sun felt cold all over. It's him. Immediately, Lin Sun was stiff all over. He saw a golden figure emerge from the huge crack in the sky, like a ruler coming to the world, whose power shook the 9 heavens and 10 lands. Boom! Then, Lin Sun's mind buzzed violently, and all the scenes in front of him faded away like a bubble. He tried to open his eyes wide, but he couldn't see anything anymore. His body seemed to fall into a vortex torrent, and the world was spinning. In a daze, Lin Sun seemed to hear the voice of Du Ji and Divine Empress again. Remember it? Chapter 973. For Lin Sun, all the previous experiences were like several springs and autumns. He didn't know how many days and nights had passed. But for Mu Jing outside the white jade lotus seat, only less than a quarter of an hour had passed. He stood there, accumulating strength and waiting. He seemed to be extremely patient. His right arm, which had been cut off, had already been reattached by a secret method. Although it couldn't be restored temporarily, it didn't affect his fighting ability. As soon as Mu Jing thought of all the previous experiences, he couldn't help gloating. As a Buddhist practitioner, he paid attention to the law of fate most. He believed that what he saw today was in accordance with the principle of karma. Every sip and every peck, it was all predestined. If you didn't deserve it, it would be in vain no matter how hard you tried. It was a pity that Lin Sun was also a top figure among the younger generation in the world, but he had to suffer here. Maybe it was the will of God. Thinking of this, Mu Jing couldn't help but smile. After Lin Sun suffered, the withered Bodhi root and the holy treasure in Lin Sun's hand would all belong to him. This was really a rare and great fortune. Huh! But at this moment, Mu Jing suddenly found that Lin Sun, whom he regarded as a dead man, opened his eyes at this moment. This guy didn't die. Mu Jing's pupils dilated, and an unspeakable stuffiness blocked his chest. How could this be possible? Seeing Mu Jing, Lin Sun was also stunned and couldn't help saying, "You are still here. Do you know how much time has passed?" Mu Jing was stunned. What did he mean? Was he mocking him for not rushing to the white jade lotus seat? That was too much. Mu Jing's face became cold and gloomy. "Heretic, don't be so arrogant. Even if you come back to life, you can't escape this time." Lin Sun ignored him, and sat on the white jade lotus seat at will. Looking at a piece of dead wood in his hand, he was lost in thought. In his mind, the scenes he saw just now seemed to appear again, making his thoughts drift. Even a sage will suffer when taking that step. What the hell is going on? Lin Sun murmured in his heart. He couldn't forget what he had seen just now. Under the Bodhi tree, the two sages finally created a Taoist scripture after countless years of deduction, which led to the arrival of a natural phenomenon. This was supposed to be an achievement that would shock the world, but who would have thought that a killing calamity would descend at the same time? Lin Sun was certain that holy monk Du Ji and the Black Phoenix Holy Empress were dead. They died on this lotus platform, killed by the dominator-like golden figure. This undoubtedly proved that in the ancient times, it was precisely because these two sages had taken a forbidden step that they had met with calamity. And this truth was especially chilling. Heresy! Are you listening to me or not? Lin Sun was awakened from his thoughts by a loud shout. He looked up and saw Mu Jing glaring at him with an ashen face, like an enraged Skanda Arhat, looking like he wanted to kill him. "Monk, you can't even get on this lotus throne. What qualifications do you have to be so arrogant?" Lin Sun reprimanded absent-mindedly. At the same time, he felt slightly strange in his heart. He acutely noticed that his ability to comprehend the Tao had changed, and it had undergone a tremendous improvement. The Grand Tao of Fire had advanced and attained the Tao Insight realm. The Star Obliteration Devouring Sky Tao had advanced and stepped into the realm of Tao Aura. On the other hand, The Grand Tao of Water, that had already attained perfection in Tao insight, had stepped into the Tao Truth realm in one go. What was the Tao Truth? It was the true essence of the Tao. The truth was the principle of the primal essence. The Tao Truth was the true essence of the primal essence of the Grand Tao. This was the third realm in the cultivation of the Grand Tao. Attaining this realm would allow a cultivator to have an even deeper understanding of the energy of the Grand Tao, allowing them to pry into its essence and comprehend its primal essence. If it was utilized in battle, then the might of the Tao Truth realm could be said to be terrifying. It was capable of deducing different forms of Tao images, and its might was more than 2 times stronger than the Tao Insight realm. Normally speaking, practically no one at the reincarnation development realm was capable of comprehending the energy of the Tao Truth, because this realm was related to the primal essence of the Grand Tao, and only the King realm that had seen through the hidden threshold of life and death was capable of accomplishing this. Yet now, Lin Sun had already attained the Grand Tao of Water to the Tao Truth realm at the intermediate stage of the reincarnation development realm. If news of this were to spread, it was bound to cause an uproar. Heresy! You've already obtained the fortuitous encounter, so why don't you dare ascend the Lotus Throne? Could it be that you're afraid? In the distance, Mu Zheng's voice was like a resounding bell as he berated with a livid expression. I've been disregarded again. That fellow had an absent-minded attitude and didn't pay any attention to me from the beginning until the end. Isn't he too arrogant and too conceited? Even with Mu Zheng's mental state that was firm like a rock, he couldn't help but be infuriated at this moment, and he felt unprecedented rage. Noisy! Monk, can you be a bit quieter? Lin Sun's thoughts were interrupted once more, and he couldn't help but frown slightly as he felt this fellow was too detestable. Does he really think I'm afraid of him by repeatedly calling me a heresy? As he spoke, Lin Sun was lost in thought once more. He suddenly realized that the comprehensive transformation of the energy of the Grand Tao he'd grasped this time ought to be related to everything he'd experienced earlier. At that time, he'd sat beneath the Bodhi tree and listened to the discussion of the Tao of the two sages. He seemed to have gained nothing, yet it was actually equivalent to having an extremely rare Tao comprehension. All these experiences are probably related to this Bodhi root. Lin Sun came to a sudden understanding in his heart. The reason why he could travel to the ancient times and witness the scene of the two sages' Tao was that he had mastered this piece of dead wood. In his palm, this piece of dead wood was scorched black and withered, as if it had been struck by lightning. It was almost decayed, and it was less than a foot long and as thick as a child's arm. But Lin Sun was sure that this was left by the Bodhi tree that had once stood beside the two sages, towering in the sky and emitting a monstrous green glow. Boom! A terrible collision sounded, and the Buddha's light shook. Lin Sun raised his head and saw that Mu Zheng was shaken and staggered back. His face was pale and he looked quite embarrassed. Obviously, he couldn't help attacking Lin Sun just now and wanted to climb the Lotus Throne to kill him, but he was blocked and pushed back. It's useless to force it. Monk, why do you have to do this? Lin Sun sighed, but he couldn't help laughing. Mu Zheng was so angry that he almost coughed up blood. Not only was he ignored, but he was also ridiculed. The most hateful thing was that the white jade Lotus Throne actually refused to let him approach. This made him so angry that he felt like he was going to go crazy no matter how good his state of mind was. Heretic, do you dare to come down and fight with me? Mu Zheng roared like the most authentic lion roar of Buddhism sect, shaking the heaven and earth. However, the next moment, he was dumbfounded, because Lin Sun showed an absent-minded look again. Mu Zheng only felt that his chest was stuffy, and he almost coughed up blood. As one of the top 18 disciples of Kitagarbha Temple, Mu Zheng was also proud and arrogant. When had he ever been ignored like this? Heretic, I'll definitely send you to the afterlife today. Mu Zheng was so angry that he gritted his teeth and roared. In fact, He also knew that the reason why he was so angry was not because he was ignored, but because he realized that he might not be able to take away the Bodhi tree this time. This was the key. Otherwise, it was impossible to make Mu Jing lose his composure just by ignoring and ridiculing him. Lin Sun really had no time to pay attention to Mu Jing at this moment, because he was surprised to find that there was a strand of magical golden power sealed in the Bodhi tree in his hand. "It's that, guys." Lin Sun was shocked when the dominating golden figure appeared in his mind. "Remember it. Don't forget." The figures of Du Ji and Holy Queen seemed to echo in his ears again. Lin Sun knew that this golden power was the key to the death of the two sages. "If one day I can take the step that the two sages once took, will I also be killed by this kind of power?" When thinking of this, Lin Sun realized the importance of this golden power. If he could crack the mystery hidden in it, he might be able to avoid the disaster that the two sages encountered in the future. He wouldn't be killed. At the same time, when Lin Sun calmly perceived the scorched Bodhi tree, the power of a Taoist scripture naturally emerged in his mind. It was extremely obscure and sacred. Vaguely, there seemed to be a deafening sound of Sanskrit and phoenix crying. Dharma scripture of solitude. All of a sudden, Lin Sun's heart beat violently, and his skin trembled with excitement. There was a peerless Taoist scripture created by Saint Du Ji and Holy Queen Black Phoenix in this withered Bodhi tree. Lin Sun had witnessed the process of the two sages creating this scripture. He even knew that the mystery of this scripture was born out of the earthly scripture and the extinguishing skill of Black Phoenix, which was enough to shock the world. Boom! However, before Lin Sun could explore it carefully, he felt a shake in front of him, which made his heart skip a beat. Looking up, he saw that Mu Jing was like a madman, constantly bombarding the white jade lotus throne with the Alaya bowl, a sacred treasure of Buddhism. The Alaya bowl shone, reflecting the phantoms of Buddhas and releasing a terrible suppressive force. The white jade lotus throne buzzed constantly and was on the verge of collapse. A trace of coldness flashed in Lin Sun's black eyes. He stood up and couldn't bear it anymore. The white jade lotus throne was the relic of Saint Du Ji. Like Saint Du Ji, Mu Jing came from the Kitagarbha temple. But now, in order to kill Lin Sun and seize the Bodhi tree, this guy didn't hesitate to destroy the lotus throne. "Stop!" Lin Sun shouted coldly. Mu Jing showed an indifferent expression and said, "Now you can't sit still? It's too late." At this moment, he was bathed in the light of Buddha, and his majestic body was as tall as a mountain. His movements didn't stop at all, but became more and more violent. But when Lin Sun was about to take action, he saw a black shadow suddenly rushing out, as if it was teleporting in the void. In an instant, it had appeared behind Mu Jing silently. Lin Sun's pupils shrank. The figure was shaped like a black phoenix, with black wings burning with wisps of flame. It was the Buddha fetus that had escaped from the Buddha's niche before. However, it was carrying a black pot in its claws. It looked sneaky and even made a silent gesture to Lin Sun to keep quiet. From beginning to end, Mu Jing seemed to be unaware of all this. He still gritted his teeth and attacked the white jade lotus throne crazily. Then, with a loud bang, the black bird swung the black pot and smashed it on Mu Jing's bald head. P.S. The second post about the analysis of Lin Sun's combat power has been posted on the public account of Goldfish. Chapter 974. The lotus throne would be destroyed. Mu Jing became excited all of a sudden. He swore to himself that when the lotus throne was broken, he would use the most powerful force to release Lin Sun. Only in this way could he vent the shame in his heart. As the successor of Kitagarbha Temple, he was robbed of his good fortune in the land of opportunity left by his ancestor. Wasn't this a shame? Who said that Buddhist cultivators had no temper? In ancient times, when Buddha was angry, all the heavens would tremble. However, at this moment, his heart suddenly beat fiercely, and a layer of fatal danger enveloped him, which made his face change suddenly. But when he reacted, it was too late. With a loud bang, Mu Jing only felt a sharp pain in his head. He saw stars, twitched all over, and almost fell down. Fortunately, he had cultivated the golden body of Arhat since childhood, so his physique was so strong that he didn't faint. But on his bright head there was a big red and swollen bump, like a horn, standing alone. Mu Jing immediately became furious. Someone dared to sneak up on him? Uncontrollable killing intent surged in his heart. He suddenly turned around, and when he saw clearly who attacked him, he was stunned. Buddha's fetus? The black bird was also a little stunned, as if it didn't expect the monk's head to be so hard that the wok didn't knock him out. I can wear out iron shoes in fruitless search, but by chance I get it without any effort. The anger in Mu Jing's heart was replaced by endless ecstasy. In order to seize the Bodhi-wood just now, he almost forgot that the real purpose of coming this time was for the unprecedented Buddha's fetus. My little friend, it was all a misunderstanding before. Now that you have shown up, please follow me. Mu Jing chanted the name of Buddha and used the inherited power of Kitagarbha Temple to communicate with the black bird. He believed that if the black bird awakened its spiritual wisdom, it would definitely feel his sincerity. Moreover, according to some elders of Kitagarbha Temple, if the Buddha's fetus came to the world, it would be enough to awaken its consciousness with the power of Kitagarbha Sutra. Because this Buddha's fetus was originally left by the solitary saint. The black bird was stunned, squinting at the monk in front of it as if looking at an idiot. Mu Jing frowned, feeling that something was wrong. Why did this Buddha's fetus have a gangster-like aura? It seemed very evil. He took a deep breath and patiently used the power of Ksitagarbha Temple's heritage to communicate with the other party. Little friend, screw you. The black bird appeared to have a bad temper. It cursed loudly and raised its claw to smash Mu Jing. Clang! Mu Jing was caught off guard and his head was struck once more. Stars danced wildly before his eyes, his body was on the verge of collapse, and his consciousness was slightly blurred. He was furious and his face was ashen. How dare you be so rude? Blackbird spat fiercely and spun the iron pot in his hand. Like a hooligan carrying a brick rack on the street, he charged forward and smashed it. Rude? If it weren't for you bald bastards, I wouldn't have been forced to awaken in advance. Clang! Clang! While cursing, He Niao waved the iron pot around vigorously, smashing it until Mu Jing couldn't take it anymore. He fell to the ground and almost fainted from the pain. Most terrifying of it all was that the iron pot was forged from unknown divine iron, and it was actually extremely hard. Moreover, it flowed with the sheen of obscure markings of the Tao. Even with Mu Jing's ability, he was suppressed to the point of being unable to raise his head. Bah! I hate hypocritical bastards like you the most. Since you want to invite me as a guest, why did you use force to subdue me before? Shout. Keep shouting. It's useless even if you shout yourself hoarse. This black bird was indeed very evil, and it was obviously full of anger. It carried the iron pot and smashed Mu Jing fiercely. Even Lin Sun was stunned. Was this really a Buddha fetus? At the same time, Mu Jing roared with grief and indignation in his heart. How could this be a Buddha fetus? It was simply a rascal. Clang! In the end, Mu Jing was knocked unconscious, with a look of grief and indignation and humiliation on his face. But He Niao seemed to want to continue. He stretched out his golden claws and kicked Mu Jing's body for a while. Then he exhaled a long breath of turbid air, looking refreshed. Hey little brother, did I scare you just now? Don't be afraid. I win people over by virtue. Generally, I don't like to fight, and I won't do some ungentlemanly things. He Niao carried the black pot on his back, and then turned around slowly. He held his head high and faced Lin Sun, looking very conceited. Lin Sun's expression was strange. This black bird looked like a dark blood black phoenix, but not like one. It carried a black pot on its back, which made its temperament very different. Moreover, it was very narcissistic and shameless. Just now it was acting like a hooligan, but now it was openly denying it. It even talked about using virtue to win people over. It was simply shameless. I'm leaving first. If you want to continue playing here, it's up to you. Anyway, I can't stay in this damn place any longer. Before Lin Sun could speak, He Niao stretched out his claws and picked up Mu Zheng on the ground. Then he spread his wings and flew to the void in the distance. Wait! Lin Sun shouted. Don't fucking bother me. The fortune left behind by that old geezer Du Ji has already been taken by you. What else do you want? He Niao shouted impatiently. Lin Sun's black eyes narrowed. Obviously, this black bird knew a lot of secrets. Whoosh! He chased after it without hesitation. The behavior of this black bird was very strange. It knocked Mu Zheng out, but didn't kill him. Instead, it took Mu Zheng away. Moreover, it seemed to know the fortune Lin Sun got from the Bodhi wood. But to Lin Sun's shock, as soon as the black bird spread its wings, it moved away in the void as if it was teleporting, and it disappeared in an instant. It was incredibly fast. What's the origin of this guy? Lin Sun increasingly felt that this black bird was extraordinary. When Lin Sun saw it for the first time, it curled up like a divine fetus with its wings folded. It was silent in the black jade Buddha niche, with wisps of black flame burning all over its body and strange Taoist patterns intertwined in it. At that time, Mu Zheng and the other 4 descendants of Kitagarbha Temple joined hands, but failed to subdue it. Instead, it easily escaped. But now, when it showed up again, it knocked Mu Zheng unconscious with one move. Its strength was so fierce that it was a complete mess. It should be noted that Mu Zheng was also a top figure. In the previous battle with Lin Sun, he had shown extraordinary combat strength. But it was precisely because of this that it was easily suppressed by the blackbird, and this was slightly inconceivable. What surprised Lin Sun the most was that the blackbird only showed some impatience when it knew that Lin Sun had obtained the fortune. It didn't fight with Lin Sun because of this. This behavior was undoubtedly too abnormal. Who was it? The white jade lotus platform was broken and on the verge of collapse. In this world, the restriction of Buddha light was fading at an astonishing speed. This mysterious ancient temple was undergoing a shocking change silently. Thinking of everything that had happened on this trip, Lin Sun stood there in a trance. "Child Lin, are you all right?" Not long after, Miss Lu, Loka and the others appeared. When they saw Lin Sun standing there in good condition, they all felt relieved. "I'm fine." Lin Sun sobered up and got rid of the distracting thoughts in his mind. "What about Mu Zheng?" Miss Lu looked around. "It's complicated. I'll talk to you one by one after we leave this place," said Lin Sun. "All right," Miss Lu nodded. Loka couldn't help but ask, "Lin Sun, did you—" Before Loka could finish, Lin Sun nodded and said, "Fortunately, I didn't fail you." Loka heaved a sigh of relief immediately. A rare look of relaxation appeared on her beautiful face. Without any delay, they quickly rushed out of the ancient temple. The restriction of Buddha light was fading. Without this layer of protection, the ancient temple was destined to be annihilated soon. Even the entire relic would sink and cease to exist in this world. After all, this was a relic that had existed since ancient times. Without the protection of the restriction, it would definitely be completely destroyed. Sure enough, just as they rushed out, a series of trembling sounds of collapse and destruction sounded from the depths of the ancient temple. Lin Sun couldn't help but look back. The dilapidated ancient temple seemed to have lost its vitality and became extremely dim. It was a horrifying sight. "Let's go." Without hesitation, they returned along the original path. Until their figures disappeared, a black bird appeared on the ancient temple. Its wings were like burning black flames. "This guy can actually withstand such a test. Is it fate?" The black bird murmured in its heart. It was very clear how terrifying the golden power sealed in the piece of Bodhi wood was. Even it was unwilling to touch it, because it was a power that could kill a saint. But Lin Sun didn't suffer immediately. Instead, he withstood the test and obtained the inheritance. This shocked the blackbird. Humph! That should have been my fortune, but it was taken by you. After I settle a personal matter, I'll come to you to settle it. If you don't give me enough benefits, humph! The blackbird snorted coldly. Then, it turned its head and looked at the depths of the ancient temple with a pair of eyes as dark as the eternal night. Why did you take this step when you knew you were going to die? In the end, I'm the only one left to awaken in this life. An indescribable sorrow surged in its heart. At this moment, the black bird seemed unusually lonely and desolate. Evil creature! Next to it, Mu Zheng, who had fainted, opened his eyes with difficulty. When he saw the black bird beside him, the old and new hatred surged in his heart and he immediately roared. Clang! Without looking at him, the black bird smashed the black pot skillfully. Mu Zheng felt a pain in his head. He rolled his eyes and lay down straight. Then, he sadly fainted again. You're really a stubborn bald donkey. It's not easy for me to show my true feelings, but it's ruined by your loud voice. The black bird spat fiercely. Then, it spread its wings and carried the fainted Mu Zheng away. I don't know whether it's good or bad for me to wake up early this time. Maybe this is fate? It's time to go to Ksitigarbha Temple. Behind the black bird, the dilapidated ancient temple that had stood since ancient times finally collapsed with a bang and transformed into dust that covered the sky before dispersing into nothingness. Before long, heaven and earth sank, and the ancient relic opened up by supreme power collapsed and dissipated like smoke. Chapter 975. On the Boundary River, a golden treasured ship slowly moved forward. In the room of the boat, Lin Sun was perceiving the mystery of Dharma scripture. This scripture was extremely profound and profound. It was born from the Great Earth Scripture and the Black Phoenix extinguishing technique. It was created by the holy monk Xing Ji and the Black Phoenix Divine Empress after countless years of deduction and painstaking effort. It was all-inclusive and roughly divided into 3 parts. The first part was called Teaching, which was the exposition of the 2 sages on the essence and mystery of Earth Scripture and Dark Phoenix extinguishing skill. The former was the foundation of Ksitigarbha Temple. It was a supreme inheritance with incredible essence. It was the general outline for Buddhist practitioners in Ksitigarbha Temple to comprehend Tao and study Taoism. For example, the Universal Salvation Calamity Technique that Mu Zheng had displayed was an ancient inheritance that belonged to the Earth Scripture. It could be said that just understanding Earth Scripture was enough for Lin Sun to master all the Taoism of Ksitigarbha Temple. In Ksitigarbha Temple, not every successor could master it. After all, it was the foundation of an orthodoxy. Dharma and Taoism couldn't be taught easily. In the first part of the Great Scripture of Solitude, Holy Monk Duji thoroughly sorted out and elaborated all the mysteries of the Great Earth Scripture. It was like an elder teaching. The disciple didn't need to explore the Scripture alone. As long as he listened and comprehended it, he could master all the mysteries of the Scripture smoothly. In this regard, even Mu Zheng, one of the 18 disciples of Ksitigarbha Temple, could not enjoy such treatment. Dark Phoenix extinguishing skill was the foundation of Dark Phoenix bloodline. It was also an ancient and supreme Taoism scripture. Moreover, Dark Phoenix Holy Queen combined her own Taoism and Dharma to make a comprehensive and essential exposition of this scripture with great wisdom, which could be called wonderful. All of this meant that even if he only cultivated the first part of the Great Scripture of Solitude, he would be able to master the supreme inheritance of the 2 ancient forces. The second part of Dharma scripture was called Fusion of Tao, which was the method of combining 2 different inheritances. It contained the mystery of integrating the mysteries of Earth Scripture and Dark Phoenix extinguishing skill. The third part was the real essence of the Great Scripture of Solitude. It was called Hidden Silence, and it was a brand new scripture created by two ancient sages. This sort of new was born from the two supreme inheritances, yet it surpassed them. It was related to the supreme profundities of the Saint Tao, and it was so valuable that it was sufficient to draw the covetous gazes of saints. Simply speaking, the great scripture of tranquility was divided into three parts: teaching, Tao fusion, and tranquility concealment. Every single part could be said to be vast like an abyss, and it contained boundless profundities. For Lin Sun, if he wanted to comprehend this scripture, he had to do it step by step. He would first comprehend the teaching part, then study and grasp the earth scripture and Black Phoenix extinguishing art. Only when he completely comprehended its profundities would he be able to further comprehend the Tao fusion portion and master the profundities of these two scriptures before combining them into one. Only when he reached this step did he have the foundation to comprehend the third part, hidden silence. But Lin Sun was very clear that with his current ability, it would take him many years to comprehend the mystery of the teaching part, let alone to comprehend the Tao fusion and hidden silence. He even suspected that the last two parts of the great scripture of tranquility were the profundities that only saints could comprehend. After all, Tao fusion was fused with the foundation inheritances of two ancient sects, and they were two supreme inheritances that were renowned since the primordial times. This was destined to be impossible for practitioners at the level of reincarnation development realm, and even the old monsters of King Realm could not have this ability. After a long time, Lin Sun woke up from his meditation, got up, and opened the door. "How is it?" Loka had already been waiting outside the door. She was dressed in a purple dress, and her temperament was like an orchid in an empty valley. Her bright and beautiful white face was full of expectation. "All right." Lin Sun nodded and handed her a jade slip that recorded the Black Phoenix extinguishing art. Loka was stunned, and a touch of excitement appeared on her beautiful face, as if she could not believe it. After a long time, she took a deep breath and cautiously took the jade slip in her hand. Then she raised her head and stared at Lin Sun with her clear eyes, saying, "Thank you very much. I will repay this kindness in the future." Lin Sun smiled and said, "I have already gained something. You don't have to care so much." Loka shook her head. "This is different." On the treasure ship, Miss Lu, Shun Baixian, and the others were also waiting. Many incredible things had happened in the mysterious ancient temple this time, and they were all curious about what Lin Sun had experienced. Not long after, Lin Sun and Loka appeared together. They did not hide anything and told them everything they had seen at the end of the ancient temple. However, Lin Sun did not say much about Tao comprehension and the Bodhi wood. After all, it was too intimate, and it was not appropriate to say more. Even so, Miss Lu and the others were still shocked. In the primordial era, two saints took a step that was like a taboo and actually brought about a fatal calamity. They were killed on the spot by a golden figure that looked like a ruler. In this world, there was a taboo power stronger than a saint? It was also at this time that they finally understood that the previous rumors were not true. In ancient times, Saint Du Ji and the Black Phoenix Divine Empress were not mortal enemies, and the Divine Empress was not killed by Du Ji. On the contrary, the relationship between them was extremely close. They had previously performed the Tao together, and the one who killed them was someone else. For a time, the surroundings fell silent. Who exactly was it that possessed such supreme power to be able to kill two ancient saints? What did that taboo step mean? In the silence, Miss Lu seemed to think of something. Her body suddenly stiffened, and incomparable fear emerged in her clear eyes. "If I'm not wrong, that is the saint-slaying taboo, also known as the Tao-cutting power." Saint-slaying taboo. The Tao-cutting power. No matter which explanation it was, it made people's hearts tremble. Is the legend true? Shun Baixian seemed to think of something as well, and his expression changed. "What is it?" Loka could not help but ask. Lin Sun was also shocked. He thought of the golden power sealed in the Bodhi tree. Perhaps it was the saint-slaying taboo that Miss Lu had mentioned. In ancient times, there was an extremely vague rumor that said that any sages who wanted to cross the taboo and seek a higher level of power would attract a terrifying killing tribulation. Miss Li's voice was low as she revealed a secret that was unknown to the world. The saint-slaying taboo had an unknown origin. It was like the embodiment of the laws of the world, and it signified inauspiciousness and death. Since ancient times, many great figures had mysteriously disappeared and never appeared again. It was rumored that they had died under this taboo power. Of course, this was only an extremely vague rumor. If Lin Sun had not mentioned the encounter of Saint Du Ji and the Black Phoenix Divine Empress, Miss Lu would have almost forgotten about it. I've also heard from my ancestor that this taboo power is like a butcher's knife that can cut off a sage's cultivation and erase them from the world. It is extremely terrifying. Shun Baixin said. Moreover, rumor has it that the appearance of the Saint Hermit land seems to be related to this taboo power. Saint Hermit, the place where sages live in seclusion. Yes, if not for some reason, which sage would be willing to live in seclusion? This rumor may be true, Miss Lu sighed. Lin Sun was stunned. Only now did he know that the so-called Saint Hermit land in this world had such an unknown secret. Of course, all of these were just rumors and seemed incredible. No one dared to believe it before they came into contact with the truth. Then, they talked about the Buddha fetus. According to Miss Lu, the Buddha fetus was originally a spiritual fetus nurtured by heaven and earth. It had never existed since ancient times and was later obtained by Saint Du Ji and kept by his side. When they entered the ancient temple and saw the Buddha fetus, Miss Lu realized that there was a big secret hidden in the Buddha fetus. Its body was very likely to contain the power of the two sages, Saint Du Ji and the Black Phoenix Divine Empress. However, when they heard Lin Sun talk about the shameless and wretched behavior of the blackbird, Miss Lu and the others were stunned. In particular, when they heard that Mu Jing, a peerless figure of the Xitigarbha temple, was attacked by the black bird and knocked unconscious with an iron pot, they couldn't help but be amused. Interesting. It has been accompanying the two sages all year round, but it has such a disposition. The origin of the blackbird is bound to be extraordinary. It's a pity that we couldn't capture it this time. Miss Lu muttered to herself. The others also thought the same. The blackbird had been sealed in the black jade Buddha niche since ancient times. Moreover, it was a spiritual fetus that followed the two sages all year round. How could it be ordinary? Anyway, it's a worthwhile trip. Miss Lorga also got what she wanted and obtained the Black Phoenix Divine Art. Congratulations, Miss Lu congratulated with a smile. Thank you for your help this time. I will definitely repay your kindness in the future. Lorga cupped one hand in the other before his chest and bowed. Lin Sun, before you leave, would you like to have a spar with me? Shun Baixuan's eyes flashed like lightning, looking disdainful and conceited. The purpose of this trip had been achieved, so he and Lorga would leave. At the moment of separation, Shun Baixian seemed to be unwilling. In the end, he couldn't hold back and wanted to fight with Lin Sun. Lorga suddenly had a headache. This guy couldn't be more obedient. He just walked out of the ruins of the ancient temple, and now he wanted to make trouble again. Unexpectedly, Lin Sun didn't refuse this time. Instead, he asked with interest, "Are you sure?" Shun Baixian was carefree as a wisp of a proud arc appeared on the corners of his mouth. Is a battle with you even worth considering and considering? This simple-minded fool is making mistakes again. He really doesn't learn from his mistakes. Ko Xing and the others in the distance looked at Shun Baixian with pity and sighed in their hearts. If Shun Baixian heard their thoughts, he would probably go crazy with anger. In that case, Shun Baixian seemed to think of something and interrupted Lin Sun. Remember, this is a duel between you and me. Outsiders are not allowed to intervene. Everyone had a strange look on their faces. Obviously, Shun Baixian was worried that Xia Ji, the godlike girl, would come out and kill him, so he took precautions in advance. Chapter 976. Sure, Lin Sun agreed without hesitation. Shun Baixian was stunned. He didn't expect Lin Sun to agree so readily. Then he raised his eyebrows and said, "Since it's a duel, it's natural to compete in martial arts. Apart from that, you can't use holy weapons." "Okay," Lin Sun nodded again. Shun Baixian was relieved. His eyes flashed like lightning, and his body exuded a golden brilliance. His fighting spirit surged. "Then you have to be careful. Remember, although I won't kill you, I won't show mercy," Lin Sun said, "just like when you fought with Xia Ji last time?" Shun Baishuan's lips twitched fiercely. He was furious. Lin Sun was exposing him in public. "Of course!" he shouted and rushed out, stepping on the void. His long hair fluttered in the wind, and he looked like a god of war, arrogant and disdainful. "Come and fight." Lin Sun smiled brightly. "As you wish." Swish. His clothes fluttered, and his whole body overflowed like a stream of light. His palms and fingers formed a seal, and he knocked on Shun Baixian across the air. Boom! The battle broke out in an instant. In the void, wind and thunder surged, and the divine light rumbled. The battle situation was astonishing. Boom! Lin Sun stepped forward and performed the method of refining the Star River by fire. A sea of fire spread out and surged in the 9 heavens and 10 earth. The stars in it burned like blazing suns exploding, producing an aura that could destroy the world. Ostentatious, wanton, domineering, like a god of fire. Everyone present was moved, especially Miss Lu and Loka, who were keenly aware that Lin Sun's combat effectiveness was obviously much stronger than before. However, Shun Baixian was not bad. Although this devil incarnate from a family of saints was arrogant and conceited, he had the capital to be conceited. His body was surrounded by golden divine light, and he performed an ancient fist force. His fist force was like an angry dragon sweeping through the sky, extremely fierce and overbearing. "Good!" Lin Sun laughed and fought fiercely with him. He seemed to be enjoying himself to his heart's content. He was worried that he couldn't find an opponent to hone his newly transformed power of the Great Way. Coincidentally, Shun Baixian took the initiative to come to him, which was exactly what Lin Sun wanted. Just like at this moment, he was acutely aware that after the advancement of the power of the Grand Tao of Fire, the might that erupted from the fiery refinement Star River could simply be described as shocking. With a single strike, a sea of flames covered the sky and a river of stars burned. The terrifying destructive power was enough to refine a part of the world. Humph! Shun Baixian snorted coldly. Although he was surprised by Lin Sun's strength, he didn't panic. He used his ancestral Taoist arts to fight head-on. Moreover, he was even more domineering than Lin Sun, and he'd never dodged from the beginning until the end. His fists were extremely powerful and overbearing, and they even blasted apart the void and caused turbulence to sweep out. But soon, he was furious because Lin Sun scolded him with slight dissatisfaction in the fierce battle. "Use more strength." This was Lin Sun's original words, and he said it with a frown. "You little brat, you really are arrogant." Shun Baixian had always prided himself on being the devil incarnate, but now that he was being provoked like this, he exploded. He roared furiously, his entire body releasing endless golden radiance. He brandished the halberd without the slightest hesitation, hacking out in all directions. He was ferocious like an ancient overlord. "Now this is interesting." Lin Sun wasn't shocked, but rather delighted. "You're looking for a beating." Shun Baixian gritted his teeth and waved the halberd, splashing out tens of thousands of layers of golden radiance, and even the void rumbled and exploded. He was determined to return the humiliation Xia Solstice had brought him to Lin Sun, and he wanted Lin Sun to taste the feeling of unbearable pain, despair, and grievance. But it wasn't long before Lin Sun was dissatisfied again, and he said, the dignified devil incarnate of the Shun clan only has this little ability? You! Shun Baishen roared angrily, and he almost bit his teeth into pieces. He couldn't restrain himself any longer, and he used his trump card. Rumble! His golden halberd actually emanated circle after circle of golden ripples of the Tao, and it caused the nearby space to collapse and sink. It seemed like it was showing signs of great destruction. This was the Shun clan's ancestral secret art, golden vortex true energy. It could pierce through the sky and kill ghosts and gods, and it was extremely domineering and fierce. Seeing this, the aura around Lin Sun's body suddenly changed, and it became quiet like an abyss, and his whole body emitted terrifying fluctuations that seemed capable of devouring the heavens and destroying the earth. This was the way of devouring star obliteration, which had reached the level of Tao. At this time, this power was mixed into 9 strikes for shaking heaven and 9 changes of Calamity Dragon by Lin Sun. In an instant, his combat power also changed accordingly. When he punched out, the nearby void seemed to be directly swallowed up, and the attack from Shun Baishen was completely annihilated, disappearing without a trace. This was too strange. Everyone saw that Shun Baishuan's golden vortex true energy was like a golden dragon soaring in the sky, with the power to destroy the heavens and destroy the earth. But before it could get close, it was swallowed up by Lin Sun's fist energy and annihilated without a trace. Then, Lin Sun's fist energy burst out, just like a great abyss of hell opening its mouth to devour the heavens. With a bang, Shun Baishuan's whole body was submerged in the fist energy. Bang! However, Shun Baishuan's reputation was not undeserved. His spear burst into bright and blazing light, crushing the power that suppressed his whole body, and he escaped unharmed. It was just that he was a little embarrassed, and his clothes were torn. What kind of power was this? Shun Baishen realized the power, and his face changed slightly. At the same time, Miss Lu and Loka were also shocked, sensing the terrifying power of the Great Way that Lin Sun displayed. The Great Way is like a great abyss, unfathomable, and like a black hole that can swallow everything. What kind of Great Way is this? Loka was stunned, and her clear eyes were full of surprise. Why do I feel that it's a little familiar, as if I've heard of it somewhere? Miss Lu murmured, frowning. After a long time, she suddenly said, I remember. It's Yun Qi Bai, the top swordsman in the ancient Desolation territory. There was a trace of shock in her voice, and she seemed to have lost her composure. Yun Qi Bai. Miss Li's clear eyes also narrowed. Yun Qi Bai's swordsmanship is like an abyss, and it has the infinite power to kill ghosts and gods, devour the universe, and its killing power is shocking, Miss Lu said. Rumor has it that he has mastered a mysterious and rare power of the Great Way. This kind of power is enough to rank in the top 10 of the Supreme Tao list. You mean that Lin Sun has also mastered this kind of power of the Great Way? Loka suddenly remembered that this was the power of the Great Way that Lin Sun had comprehended in the steel forest of Azure Parasol Mountain. At that time, it was regarded as an extremely ordinary whirlpool Great Way, and it caused a lot of ridicule. But now it seemed that it was definitely not the case. No, I just feel that it's a little similar, but I'm not sure if it's the same source. Miss Lu shook her head. Although she said so, her expression was quite complicated, as if she was shocked and in disbelief. In the fierce battle in the void, Shun Baishen was completely suppressed, and he couldn't even raise his head. This caused him to be both shocked and furious. He'd similarly stepped foot onto the peak of the world, possessed various peerless secret techniques, and possessed extraordinary natural talent. He felt that amongst the younger generation, only a small group of heaven-defying geniuses in the St. Hyde grounds could pose a threat to him. The others were not worth fearing, but who would have thought that he would be suppressed by Xia Ji a few days ago, and now he was being suppressed by Lin Sun? How could he not be shocked? Can you do it or not? Show me all your trump cards. Lin soon expressed his dissatisfaction on the opposite side. This made Shun Baixian so angry that he wanted to vomit blood. He had used many secret methods and trump cards, but they were resolved again and again. How could he have any trump cards left? Unless he used a holy treasure, but if he did that, it would be equivalent to slapping his own face, and he couldn't afford to lose face. Boom. In the end, Shun Baixian was defeated by Lin Sun, and blood sprayed from his mouth and nose. He had a backbone, and he gritted his teeth and refused to admit defeat. He still fought with Lin Sun fiercely. But after being defeated again and again, there was no hope for him to turn the tables. He was directly suppressed by Lin Sun from the void, and with a bang, he fell on the treasure ship. In the void, Lin Sun wanted to continue, but he was stopped by Loka. Don't fight anymore. The winner has been decided. If you continue, it will be a matter of life and death. Loka felt a headache coming on. I don't accept this. Shun Baishuan's face was livid, and he shouted angrily. However, he didn't take any further action. He was purely venting the grievance and anger in his heart. You have ambition. As the saying goes, no shame and then be brave. I hope you have the ability to come and fight with me again. I promise to accompany you to the end. Lin Sun walked over with a smile. Sir, Ko Xing said, I never would have guessed that you would be so powerful. We misunderstood you earlier, and would like to apologize to you. I hope that you, a person of great stature, will be able to forgive us for our transgressions. They had all seen the previous battle, and they suddenly realized that the guy they thought to be simple-minded was actually a top powerhouse. But when he heard their apology, Shun Baixian was so angry that he trembled all over. Hateful, really hateful, I have been defeated like this, what the hell is there to apologize for? Is there any use? In the end, Shun Baixian left with Loka, full of shame. Before leaving, he resolutely said that he would definitely come back to fight with Lin Sun again to wash away his shame. Lin Sun expressed a strong welcome to this and kindly exhorted him to work hard and never slack off after he went back. Shun Baixian wanted to say thank you, but when he learned that these words came from Lin Sun, he was so angry that his nose almost fell off. Was Lin Sun showing off? A kind and amiable attitude, as if taking care of the loser, this was clearly full of malicious mockery. Loka and Shun Baixian left together, and Lin Sun and the others didn't delay and continued on their way to the depths of the border river. Along the way, although there were many dangers, they didn't encounter any fatal dangers. Time went by, and before they knew it, 7 days had passed. In these 7 days, in addition to cultivation, Lin Sun also comprehended and figured out the mysteries of the first part of the Dharma scripture, which was very fulfilling. The only thing that puzzled him was that after so many days, Little Silver, who was suppressed in the sea of consciousness, showed no sign of yielding and admitting his mistakes. He seemed extremely stubborn. Little Silver was the soul-devouring insect that had transformed into a larva king. Since being deceived by Lin Sun, it was very angry and felt that its self-esteem had been damaged, and it didn't want to pay attention to Lin Sun, its black-hearted and unscrupulous master. Lin Sun also felt a little headache about this. He was considering whether to find another time to have a good talk with Little Silver. Chapter 977. The Random Star Beach was a famous relic of an ancient battlefield in the Boundary River. It was said that in ancient times there was an earth-shattering battle here. A saint of swordsmanship appeared here, and with just one sword, he cut down all the stars in the sky. The stars exploded and turned into meteorites falling down, smashing out huge abyss-like pits within a radius of tens of thousands of miles. When the Boundary River appeared, this area experienced countless changes over the years and became today's Random Star Beach. Look, that's the Random Star Beach in the distance. For many cultivators in the Dongxing territory, the Random Star Beach is a treasure land. There are real star remains meteorites in it, and there are many of them. In the past countless years, No one knows how many cultivators have come to explore and excavate. On the deck of the treasure ship, Ko Xing pointed to the distance with a relaxed expression and spoke frankly with assurance. After arriving at the random star beach, it was equivalent to entering the territory of the Dongxing territory. In less than half a day, they would arrive at the nearest city to the Boundary River. In the distance, the turbid waves of the Boundary River were rolling, and clouds and mist filled the air. But unlike other areas, there were reef-like lands here. They were full of potholes, and the river flowed into them, looking like a beach. It covered an extremely large area. Some reefs were only more than 30 meters wide, while some reefs were no different from islands and were dozens of miles in size. This rumor isn't false. During the ancient times, that saint of the sword Tao was extremely famous, and he was titled the demon-vanquishing sword saint. He once went on an expedition here, and he used all his combat strength to slash down the stars in the sky with a single strike of his sword. The shattered remains of the stars fell here forever, and it formed the spectacle before us. Miss Lu said. She was extraordinarily intelligent and knew many ancient secrets, making people wonder if there was anything in this world that she didn't know. Demon-vanquishing sword saint? Lin Sun sighed inwardly. This title was really amazing. What kind of treasure are the star remains meteorites? Lin Sun couldn't help asking. It's similar to Source Sealing Spirit Stone. After cutting it open, there's a great chance to cut out rare and precious treasures, such as spiritual materials, spiritual herbs, ores, precious jade, and so on. Miss Lu was very familiar with them. And some rare ones can even cut out incredible treasures such as divine materials, spiritual treasures, and spiritual embryos. Spiritual embryo? Lin Sun was surprised. Yes, around 10 years ago, an elder at the half-step monarch realm of the heavenly pivot divine grounds of the East Victory domain had once obtained a strange meteorite in the chaotic star shoal. After he cut it open, he discovered that a rare lazarite beast spirit embryo was being nurtured within it. It hadn't even awakened its spiritual sense, yet it already possessed cultivation, and it could be said to be miraculous. Miss Lu said, "It seems like such a thing has happened more than once in the past. I heard that someone even cut out a mysterious beast bone from a meteorite. It was branded with a peerless cultivation technique." Hearing this, Lin Sun couldn't help but be amazed. The world was so big that nothing was too strange. When Miss Lu mentioned the heavens pivot holy ground, Lin Sun couldn't help but recall some past events. When he was in Xiao Empire, he had heard that most of the top students of Green Deer Academy were sent to the heavens pivot holy land to cultivate. The one who left the deepest impression on Lin Sun was Gu Yunting, who possessed the talent of Tao Fire Golden Body. He was extremely famous in Green Deer Academy. However, Lin Sun didn't like this guy at all. At that time, Gu Yunting was arrogant and wanted to take it away from Lin Sun for the horn of the one-legged ox, which led to a conflict. Although they didn't fight in the end, the conflict was formed. In addition to Gu Yunting, many people from Green Deer Academy also entered the Heavens Pivot Holy Land to cultivate, such as Zhuo Yujing of the Zhuo clan, Zhao Jingwen of the Imperial family, and so on. Speaking of which, for some reason, Lin Sun had taught some descendants of the Heavens Pivot Holy Land a lesson. Because of this, he was hated by the descendants of the Heavens Pivot Holy Land. "Where is the Heavens Pivot Holy Land?" Lin Sun asked. "It's on the other side of the Boundary River, in the territory of the ancient Song province. It's an ancient orthodoxy that is extremely famous in the East Victory domain," answered Ko Xing. Lin Sun nodded and didn't say anything more. As they talked, they were already near the chaotic star shoal. Reefs were scattered all over the place. As far as the eye could see, they couldn't see the end. The gray mist was faintly discernible in the void. Occasionally, there was a flash of firefly-like starlight, which covered this area with a mysterious color. When Lin Sun's treasure ship approached, he could see at a glance that many figures of practitioners were scattered in different areas, either in groups of 3 or 5, or acting alone. All of them were looking for something. Everyone, this area is occupied by our Rosecloud sect. I advise you to take a detour. If you dare to approach without permission, you'll be killed without mercy. As soon as they approached, a middle-aged man in black with a curly beard on one of the reefs suddenly shouted with a murderous look in his eyes. Lin Sun was stunned. Spreading his divine awareness, he saw a group of practitioners digging something in the river in the nearby area. Obviously, this middle-aged man in black with a curly beard was a sentry. At the same time, a practitioner cried out in surprise, "I found it! I found it! It's a good quality meteorite." In his hand was a stone the size of an alms bowl. It was dark and glowed with a cold metallic luster. Looking carefully, the surface of the stone was branded with strands of silver veins, and it was enshrouded with dreamlike starlight. Immediately, the nearby strong practitioners of the Rosecloud sect surrounded it. "Cut it open and have a look." Their eyes were fiery, and they all stared at the newly excavated meteorite. Lin Sun and the others couldn't help but be curious. But the middle-aged man in black with a curly beard became vigilant and shouted sternly, "If you don't leave now, don't blame me for being rude." Ko Xing and the others frowned. This guy was only at the initial stage of the reincarnation developing realm. He was even inferior to them, but he dared to reprimand them like this. It was disgusting. "Let's go." Lin Sun didn't care about this. With his current realm, he wouldn't be provoked casually. Unless it was deliberately against him, he didn't bother to care about it. They immediately steered the treasured vessel to take a detour and head towards the depths of Random Star Beach. All along the way, they saw the figures of cultivators everywhere on the large and small reef. All of them were using various methods to excavate the meteorites, and it was a scene of bustling activity. At the same time, there were many cultivators on sentry duty and were vigilant against the approach of other cultivators. During this process, Lin Sun and the others were repeatedly reprimanded and ordered not to approach. Lin Sun didn't feel anything, but Ko Xing and the others were full of anger. Damn it! This Random Star Beach is a place without an owner, and anyone can come here to search for treasures. But now it has become like this. Ko Xing was very angry and couldn't help but complain. "Are you blind? Can't you see that this area has been occupied by our floating sect? Quickly get lost." It wasn't long before they encountered another cultivator who reprimanded them loudly. He had an arrogant and cold expression on his face, and he seemed to be very arrogant. Ko Xing was instantly furious. This wasn't just reprimanding, it was clearly pointing at their noses and cursing. Bang! However, this time, Lin Sun was more direct than Ko Xing. He stretched out his hand and grabbed the man in the brocade robe across the air. "You!" The man in the brocade robe was stunned, and then he was shocked and angry. He was just about to shout when his body was smashed in front of Lin Sun and the others. He was dizzy and saw stars. "I ask and you answer. Otherwise, no one can save you." Lin Sun bowed his head, and his dark eyes were deep and cold as he looked at the man in the brocade robe. The latter's body stiffened, and great fear arose in his heart. Lin Sun's gaze was like a deep abyss, and it seemed to swallow his soul. It was so terrifying that he instantly understood the danger he was in. "Were there so many people here before?" Lin Sun asked directly. "No." The man in the brocade robe hurriedly shook his head. "Recently, there was a sudden and shocking change in the Boundary River, which caused some changes in the Random Star Beach." According to his explanation, even though the Random Star Beach was rich in meteorites, countless cultivators had come here in the boundless years, and they'd already excavated all the meteorites here. But recently, along with the shocking change that occurred in the Boundary River, a shocking change had actually occurred in the Random Star Beach that was originally almost dried up, and meteorites had started to appear frequently. Most shocking of it all was that these meteorites had been buried here for an unknown period of time, and their quality was extraordinary and far surpassed the past. It was even to the extent that someone had excavated a meteorite that was the size of a millstone and cut out a damaged and decayed bronze halberd from it. It seemed to be a damaged divine artifact. After news of this spread, it instantly caused a great stir. Countless cultivators swarmed over, and it caused the random star beach that was originally deserted to suddenly become bustling once more. Moreover, it was an unprecedentedly grand occasion. We heard that some ancient orthodoxies would interfere in a short period of time, so we hurriedly divided up our territory and excavated with all our might with the intention of reaping some benefits in advance. If we wait for those ancient orthodoxies to come, then I'm afraid we won't even be able to get some leftovers. The man in brocade clothes answered every question and was extremely cooperative. Lin Sun didn't make things difficult for him. After getting the information he wanted to know, he let the man go. The great change in the boundary river will inevitably disappear in the end, allowing the four worlds to reunite and end the pattern of world isolation. Miss Lu seemed to be deep in thought. If that's the case, as this shocking change unfolds, some of the secrets and opportunities hidden in the Realm River are destined to appear in the world. Perhaps this random star beach is a similar situation. Speaking of this, she raised her head and asked Lin Sun next to her with a smile, "What do you think? Do you want to dig up some meteorites and try your luck?" Okay. Lin Sun was also curious about what kind of treasures were hidden in these meteorites. Since he had come across them, it would be a pity if he missed them. As they talked, they moved forward, trying to find an unoccupied beach. But what made them helpless was that along the way, almost all the reefs of various sizes were occupied by cultivators. It was difficult to find an unoccupied land. While they were searching, Miss Li's clear eyes suddenly narrowed, and she looked at a reef in the distance that looked like an island. Chapter 978. On the distant reef island, a group of cultivators had surrounded a thin and weak young woman. "Little girl, why don't you quickly hand over the star remnant meteorite in your hand?" The cultivator in the lead had a sage-like bearing, yet his expression was ghastly at this moment, and he didn't conceal his killing intent at all. The other cultivators sneered as well, and they stared with burning and greedy gazes at the young woman's tightly clenched right hand because strands of bright silver radiance were seeping out from the cracks between her fingers. "It's mine. I exchanged my life for it, so why should I give it to all of you?" The young woman shivered and gritted her teeth tightly. She was extremely thin and wore an old dress made of coarse cloth. Her appearance was rather delicate and pretty, but she carried a sickly pale expression. Based on her age, she was at most 14 or 15. Moreover, based on the way she dressed, she was definitely from a poor family at the bottom of society. "Don't be stubborn. This is the territory of our blood sword sect. We haven't even gotten even with you for digging up a meteorite without permission, little girl," the old man in the lead berated with a ghastly gaze. "Out of consideration for your young age, we won't make things difficult for you. Hand over the meteorite in your hand and we'll let you go right now. Otherwise, don't blame us for being merciless." The young woman was angered to the point her entire body trembled, and she shouted loudly, "All of you are slandering me. I dug up this meteorite from somewhere else, and I was just passing by when I was surrounded by all of you. All of you, are all of you even reasonable?" Slap. A cultivator moved forward and slapped the young woman on the face, causing her to let out a shrill cry while her thin and weak figure was blasted flying. She fell to the ground while coughing up blood, and her pretty face was red and swollen. "She's just a little girl that came out of nowhere. Why waste your breath on her? Just make a move against her." This cultivator was a robust man with a ferocious appearance, a tall and mighty figure, and an extremely disdainful expression. On the ground, the young woman was filled with sorrow. Her eyes were red, and there were bloodstains on the corners of her mouth. Her entire body was covered in mud, and she seemed to be in an extremely sorry and pitiable state. She knew that resistance was futile, yet she didn't compromise or give up. She still held tightly onto the meteorite as if she was holding onto her fate, and even her knuckles had turned pale. "Don't fight, don't fight." A cultivator walked out while his gaze flickered, and he stared at the young woman as he said, "I just happen to lack a maidservant to serve me personally. This little girl's appearance isn't bad, so all of you can't destroy her." His appearance was handsome, and he wore white clothes and seemed rather carefree. However, a wisp of lust that was impossible to conceal suffused the space between his brows as he spoke. The other cultivators roared with laughter when they saw this. All of them knew that this white-clothed man was extremely lustful, and he'd harmed countless young women in secret throughout these years of cultivation. Obviously, this guy's lust was aroused again, and he had his eyes on the young girl in front of him. "You!" The thin and weak young woman was filled with grief and indignation. She felt extremely humiliated and despaired, and her vision darkened. She'd thought that the meteor in her hand would be sufficient to change her fate. Never had she imagined that it would be a calamity that awaited her. Not only could the meteorite be taken away, but even her body could be defiled. At the thought of this, she had suicidal thoughts. "Cut the crap. Let's snatch the meteorite first." The old man in the lead seemed to be a little impatient as he gave the order. Immediately, the ferocious-looking man stepped forward and grabbed the young girl on the ground in a rough and unreasonable manner. Seeing this, the young girl was already in despair. Her face was ashen, and her heart was as dead as ashes. There was only one thought left in her mind. "This god is really unfair." Scram! But at practically the same time, a tall and handsome figure appeared in front of the young girl and spoke. The burly man only felt an explosion in his ears. His soul was in sharp pain and he saw stars. He staggered to the ground and held his head as he screamed miserably. The cultivators of the Bloodsword sect narrowed their eyes in unison as they looked at the figure that stood in front of the young girl. They could not help but frown when they saw that it was only a young man at the middle stage of the reincarnation development realm. "Young master, why are you interfering with the matters of the Bloodsword sect?" the old man in the lead asked in a deep voice. The young man was Lin Sun. He paid no attention to these fellows and instead looked at Miss Lo, who was approaching from not far away. The reason why he'd helped this time was partly out of righteous indignation and reluctance, and partly because Miss Lo had shown unusual agitation and anger. She was not as calm and composed as before. This made Lin Sun acutely realize that this matter was not simple. Sure enough, when Miss Lo arrived at this moment and saw the young girl lying on the muddy ground in a miserable and desperate state, her hands trembled slightly, and a hint of uncontrollable anger appeared on her delicate face. This was an extremely rare emotion that Lin Sun had never seen from Miss Lo. At the same time, the thin girl was also a little confused. She had originally given up hope and had already planned to end her own life, but she never thought that she would actually be saved. "How dare you? That girl is our prey. Whoever dares to touch her will be the enemy of the Bloodsword sect," the old man in the lead shouted. As he spoke, he had already ordered the others to attack. This was because he sensed that something was wrong and was worried that the Starsea meteorite in the girl's hands would be taken away. Boom! There were more than 10 experts of the Bloodsword sect. When they attacked together, the momentum was extremely spectacular and shocking. It immediately attracted the attention of many cultivators in other areas. "Hurry up and leave," the thin girl blurted out anxiously. This somewhat surprised Lin Sun and Miss Lo. They looked at each other and made a decision in their hearts. Die. The handsome man in white clothes was the first to rush over, and he waved a jade fan that was painted with gold. With a swoosh, the surface of the fan surged with a bloody glow, and the ribs of the fan shot out a peerlessly fierce bloody glow. The most vicious thing was that this attack was not aimed at Lin Sun and Miss Lo, but at the thin girl on the ground. "If I can't get it, don't even think about getting it," he shouted with a cold expression. However, what terrified him was that before his attack could get close, it was silently engulfed and disappeared completely. The young man opposite him did not make any movements from beginning to end. He just stared at him with cold eyes. Not good. He realized that something was amiss and his heart trembled. He wanted to escape without hesitation. However, as soon as he turned around, he felt an invisible and terrifying pressure coming at him like a mountain falling from the sky. Plop! He was directly pressed to the ground. All his bones and tendons were broken, and blood flowed out of his 7 orifices. Before he could even scream, he directly fainted. All of this took a long time to describe, but it actually happened in an instant. It was incredibly fast. Looking from a distance, it seemed that the man in white was suppressed and fell to the ground silently. The scene was extremely strange. When the man in white was suppressed, the other experts of Blood Sword sect had also taken action. When they saw this strange and terrifying scene, their faces changed greatly. But when they wanted to react, it was obviously a step too late. A terrifying pressure was suddenly released from Lin Sun's body. It was like a great abyss swallowing the sky, covering the earth and making the void wail and submit. Next there was a series of thuds. All the experts of Blood Sword sect, including the leading old man, were suppressed to the ground at the same time. All of them were bleeding from their mouths and noses, screaming incessantly. In an instant, the whole world was filled with their shrill and terrified cries, causing the alarmed practitioners in the distance to change their expressions. Even the way they looked at Lin Sun changed. There was a kind of incomparable fear in them. These guys are really abominable. They deserve to suffer for offending child Lin. Ko Xing and the others all felt very happy. The thin girl had long been dumbfounded. She could not believe her eyes. She doubted that she was dreaming, and it was so unreal. Seeing this, Miss Lu sighed in her heart. A touch of sadness appeared between her brows as she recalled too many past events and memories. Back then, she was also a lonely girl struggling at the bottom of society. It was difficult for her to eat her fill every day. In order to survive, she often even had to compete with the beggars on the street for food. Later on, in order to change her fate, she also worked hard like this girl. She thought that with the treasure that she had exchanged her life for, she could no longer suffer such hardships. But in the end, she also despaired and was bitterly disappointed. Because back then, she had encountered almost exactly the same thing as this girl in front of her. Fortunately, her master happened to pass by and saved her. He took her back to the sect to cultivate and change her fate from then on. Fortunately, the girl in front of her was saved, and she no longer had to face the shock of despair and death. Thinking of this, Miss Lu couldn't help but look at the girl with a touch of relief and pity. "Child, our Blood Sword sect has no grievances with you." On the ground, the old man was begging bitterly with a pained expression. Lin Sun looked at Miss Lu. Miss Lu turned to look at the young girl. The girl pursed her lips, and her eyes were filled with hatred. But in the end, she shook her head and said, "Big brother, big sister, I don't want to kill them now." "Why?" Miss Lu asked. "I want to take revenge myself in the future." The girl lowered her head, but her voice was extremely firm. "What if you still can't change your situation from today onwards?" Miss Lu asked. The girl was stunned, and then she pursed her lips and said, "I've never thought about this. Since I can remember, I have nothing, so I'm not afraid to gamble with my life." Her words were calm, but there was a touch of determination in them. Miss Li's eyes became softer, and a touch of relief appeared on her lips. In a trance, she remembered herself many years ago. In the face of her master's inquiry, she also said in a firm tone, "I'm alone. In order to survive, there's no way out. If I can't change it, death is nothing." It was also this sentence that made her master take her in. "Big sister, this meteorite is for you." At this time, the girl took a deep breath and seemed to have made a decision. She opened her clenched right hand and handed it to Miss Lu. In an instant, a bright silver light emerged from the girl's palm. It was as beautiful as a dream, and it emitted a surprising and obscure fluctuation. Chapter 979. Lin Sun's eyes were also attracted by it. He could tell that it was a rare meteorite just by feeling it. It was extraordinary. It was dark and translucent, flowing with a dreamy silver light. It was very amazing. The practitioners of Bloodsword sect could not be blamed for being greedy. If it were any other practitioner, they might not be able to resist such temptation. Such a treasure falling into the hands of the thin girl was undoubtedly a crime for possessing a jade ring. She had suffered an innocent calamity. You refused to hand it over with your life. Why are you giving it to us now? Miss Lu could not help but ask. These are two different things. I can distinguish between good and bad. The girl wiped off the blood stains on her face, her eyes bright. Aren't you worried that we saved you for this thing? Miss Lu asked with interest. As long as you have a clear conscience, the girl said. Miss Lu smiled, looking at the girl with increasingly kind and pitiful eyes. My way is where my heart is at peace. Lin Sun's heart moved. He also found a rare quality in the thin girl. Her heart was firm, and she would not be confused by external things. In the end, Lin Sun and the others did not take the meteorite in the girl's hands. Instead, they took it and left the area. The practitioners of Bloodsword sect had escaped from death, but they did not feel a trace of joy. Because they knew that if the thin girl changed her fate, she would come back for revenge sooner or later. Who is that guy? What a terrifying power. He didn't even make a move, but he suppressed all the strong practitioners of Bloodsword sect. Could he be a peerless figure from some ancient orthodoxy? Don't be surprised. Recently, there have been many new peerless figures in Dongxing domain. The great era is coming, and the boundary river will disappear. The four domains of ancient desolation will reunite and restore the complete appearance of the ancient times. In the future, the world will be lively. Some practitioners on some reefs nearby could not help but sigh with emotion after witnessing the scene of Lin Sun's power. Some practitioners also rejoiced inwardly. They had reprimanded Lin Sun and his companions before and forbade them from approaching. Now thinking about it, their behavior was just like courting death. Fortunately, Lin Sun and his companions didn't care about it. Random Star Beach was extremely large and covered in reef. Dusky mist enveloped this area, causing it to seem extremely mysterious. On the treasure ship, Miss Lu had already decided to bring the thin young girl back to the sect. This made Ko Xing and the others extremely envious. All of them were clearly aware that from today onward, this seemingly pitiful and lonely poor young woman was bound to make a great leap and become completely different from before. Xiaohe, where did you find this meteorite? It's just up ahead. We'll have to pass through more than 10 islands and reefs along the way. We'll also have to pass through a foggy area. Xiaohe was the name of that skinny girl. That place is very strange. There are many bones piled up and there are terrifying beasts roaming around. But every night there will be a lot of starlight. It's silvery and beautiful, just like a river of stars. Upon hearing this, Lin Sun and Miss Lu realized that the place was destined to be extraordinary. At the same time, a look of reminiscence and infatuation appeared on Xiaohe's face. At that time, I even thought that I had arrived in outer space. There were bright stars everywhere along the way. Unfortunately, I didn't dare to go any further halfway. Why? Miss Lu couldn't help asking. I heard a series of horrifying screams and the roars of fierce beasts. Xiaohe looked nervous. Obviously, the scene at that time still made her have some lingering fear. Would you like to have a look? Miss Lu looked at Lin Sun. Lin Sun thought for a moment and nodded in agreement. He was indeed extremely curious. Xiaohe was only halfway there, yet she was able to excavate a precious star remnant meteorite of superb quality. It could be imagined that even more secrets that were unknown to others would surely be hidden in the depths of this place. Moreover, according to Xiaohe's description, he could roughly judge that the place might be very dangerous, but there must be good things that couldn't be found in other places. After half an hour, under the guidance of Xiao He, Lin Sun and the others drove the treasure ship into a foggy area. There were few islands and reefs here, and the river was no longer rolling like stagnant water. It was so quiet that it made people's hearts palpitate. "It's so beautiful!" After a short distance, Ko Xing and the others' eyes lit up. When they saw the scene in the distance clearly, they were all fascinated. In the void, groups of starlight were swaying and fluttering, emitting a clear brilliance, which looked extremely bright and resplendent in the gray fog. Looking from a distance, it was like seeing a vast galaxy rolling, and the starlight was like a belt, magnificent and bright. In a trance, it really gave people the illusion of entering the universe. But at the same time, there was an invisible sense of danger, as if there was a terrible existence hidden in the depths of the starlight. Lin Sun's eyes were like lightning, and he spread his divine awareness to perceive carefully. Immediately, he discovered a horrifying scene. In the deathly still river, there were many corpses, and they were all in a terrible state. Some had their heads smashed, some had their chests torn, and some had their bodies broken, with only broken limbs floating. Moreover, Lin Sun roughly judged that the owners of these corpses should have died not long ago. Judging from their injuries, it was obvious that they had encountered terrible beasts. "Be careful, everyone. This place is a little strange," Lin Sun warned. As soon as he finished speaking, a silver-white figure flashed out from the dazzling starlight like a bolt of lightning, and it fiercely rushed towards the treasure ship where they were. Boom! The void exploded with a sharp whistle. The silver-white figure was not only fast, but it was also extremely ferocious, and it crushed the void. Ko Xing and the others hurriedly steered the treasure ship to avoid it. At the same time, they finally saw the silver-white figure clearly. It was a demon beast shaped like a pangolin. Its whole body was covered with silver scales, and its 4 claws were like sharp hooks. Its eyes were scarlet and cold, and it emitted an extremely violent and bloodthirsty aura. Ko Xing took out a spear and attacked. Clang! Sparks flew in all directions. The pangolin's skin, bones, and scales were harder than magic treasures, and it emitted a silver brilliance that shook off Ko Xing's spear. At the same time, it let out a sharp whistle, and a white light sprayed out from its bloody mouth. With a bang, it sent Ko Xing flying. This was shocking. Ko Xing was a strong cultivator in the reincarnation developing realm, but he could not withstand a single blow from the pangolin. So powerful! Green-faced and Qi Lian did not dare to be negligent. They rushed up together and joined Ko Xing to kill the pangolin. However, the pangolin displayed an unexpectedly terrifying power. Its body was like a swift bolt of white lightning, moving extremely fast in the void. Bang! 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 In the blink of an eye, Ko Xing and the others were shaken back one by one. They felt so uncomfortable that they almost coughed up blood, and their expressions changed. What the hell was this? Boom! The pangolin was unforgiving, and it was extremely violent. It suddenly rushed forward, opened its mouth, and a white light sprayed out. It was so fast that Ko Xing did not have time to dodge. Crack! Right at this moment Lin Sun moved. With a press of his palm and fingers, a force of annihilation surged out, and it dissolved the white light with a puff. Ko Xing had escaped death, and he broke out in a cold sweat. There was no doubt that if it were not for Lin Sun, all of them would have died here. This strange pangolin was simply abnormal, and it was even more ferocious than a reincarnation developing realm cultivator. Interesting. Lin Sun stepped forward with ice drake steps, and it immediately attracted the pangolin's attention and vigilance. Its scarlet eyes were filled with bloodthirsty ruthlessness. Boom! It seemed to be aware of the danger. Its body, which seemed to be made of silver, burst into blazing light, and it turned into a bolt of lightning, rushing over. Lin Sun exerted the profound meaning of Swanee seal and lower tyrant prohibition. With a palm, the pangolin's body was pressed on the deck of the treasure ship as if it had been pressed by a huge mountain. Its scales cracked and shattered, and blood flowed. It let out a painful and furious scream. Suddenly, it raised its tail like a bright silver whip. It flashed in the air, and actually transformed into numerous sharp blades of light. Lin Sun stood there without dodging. His body was like a great abyss, and the sharp light blades were engulfed and annihilated as soon as they approached. Bang! At the same time, Lin Sun punched out. The scales all over the pangolin's body collapsed and broke, and there were traces of its body being smashed. In the distance, Ko Xing and the others clicked their tongues. Such a powerful beast was actually beaten to the point of being unable to resist. Child Lin was truly a demon-like figure. But to everyone's surprise, the pangolin was extremely tenacious. It went completely crazy at this moment of life and death. Its body seemed to be burning, and it steamed with dazzling silver-white divine brilliance. It seemed like it was going to destroy everything indiscriminately. Lin Sun didn't even look at it. He kicked the pangolin's head and crushed its skull, causing it to die completely. From beginning to end, he seemed relaxed and calm. "Have you seen such a strange demonic beast before?" Lin Sun asked. "This should be a living creature that lives above the starry sky." Miss Lu had been thinking about it and finally came to this conclusion. Above the starry sky? Lin Sun was surprised. It should be so. This random star shoal is the remains of an ancient battlefield. Back then, the mad demon swordmaster once slashed down the stars in the sky, causing many shattered stars to fall here. Miss Lu pondered and said, "I suspect that the living creature in front of us fell here along with the shattered stars. Moreover, there are indeed records in the ancient books that there are unknown living creatures living in the boundless starry sky. There were once some powerful living creatures that broke through the barrier and descended into the ancient desolation domain. However, they are extremely rare, and we might not encounter them even once in tens of thousands of years." "I see," Lin Sun said thoughtfully. "If there really is a starry sky beast living here, it must be extraordinary. We might be able to unearth extremely rare meteorites." Miss Li's clear eyes were glistening. Just these words caused everyone to be extremely moved. At this moment, a figure suddenly rushed over from the starry sky in the distance, emitting the sound of wind and thunder. It was extremely eye-catching. P.S. Tomorrow is the weekend and it's also 520. Goldfish will stay at home and write. Release 5 chapters. The first chapter was set at noon as usual. Chapter 980. It was a teenager about 16 or 17 years old. He carried a pair of wings on his back and was surrounded by wind and thunder. The crackling electric arcs were quite eye-catching. He's from the Thunder Wing clan. It's a first-class clan in Dongxing Boundary. Miss Lu recognized him at a glance and explained to Lin Sun. At the same time, the teenager glanced at the pangolin's corpse on the treasure ship and then looked at Lin Sun and the others. He said, "Greetings, Taoism friends. I targeted this beast first. I wonder if you can hand it over?" As he spoke, his wings were overflowing with electric arc. Although he was quite young, he already had a kind of awe-inspiring majesty. His demeanor was quite outstanding. "Isn't it a bit too much to ask for it just because you say it's yours?" Lin Sun raised his eyebrows. "Too much? No, I'm just persuading you with kind words," the teenager smiled calmly. "Then let me tell you, don't think about it. Even your parents can't persuade me, let alone you," Lin Sun said. "What do you mean?" The teenager frowned and looked unhappy. Wind and thunder surged around him, causing the void to tumble violently. "Can't you see that we don't welcome you? Leave now." Ko Xing shouted. "Haha, it seems that I'm too kind. I thought that persuading you with kind words was enough to solve this problem. Who would have thought that I would meet a group of barbarians?" The teenager chuckled. He was very conceited and there was undisguised coldness in his words. "Barbarians." Lin Sun also smiled, revealing his snow-white teeth. The teenager was stunned and said disdainfully, "What? You're not convinced?" Lin Sun stepped forward in the void and said, I'm very curious. Who gave you the courage to be so arrogant? Boom. His whole body shone and pressed forward. You're courting death, the teenager sneered. He didn't move, but a silver thunderbolt bow appeared in his hand. Swish! An electric arrow shot out like a bolt of lightning, bringing with it a baleful aura that filled the sky, tearing the void apart. Lin Sun didn't dodge. He stretched out his arm and grabbed the arrow gently. All the terrible power on the arrow was swallowed up and refined in an instant. You! The teenager's pupils shrank as he realized that something was wrong. This was the silver thunderbolt arrow, which was enough to kill a practitioner in the reincarnation development realm. But now it was caught by the opponent. Buzz! Suddenly, Lin Sun raised his hand and swung the arrow. The arrow flew back several times faster than before, making a harsh roar like a silver sun. Its momentum was several times more terrible than before. Not good. The young man was so shocked that his hair stood on end. Without hesitation, he took out a blue shield. With a loud sound, the blue shield suddenly exploded. A rain of light scattered everywhere, and the young man was already heavily injured. He coughed out blood and almost fell into the boundary river. Do you know who I am? The youth erupted with rage, his face ashen. Lin Sun laughed. He was not afraid of this kind of threat at all. He rushed up again, clenched his fists, and carried out suppression. To Lin Sun's surprise, this young man from the Thunder Wing clan was also extremely powerful. He was by no means comparable to ordinary practitioners in reincarnation developing realm. With a pair of lightning wings flashing, his speed was extremely fast, almost close to teleportation. Unfortunately, this guy encountered Lin Sun, a demon god who had disturbed the West Hung world and killed a half-step king realm expert with his bare hands. In the end, he was no match for Lin Sun. In less than a few breaths, he was suppressed by Lin Sun with a slap and thrown onto the deck of the treasure ship. With blood spurting from his mouth and nose, the young man was so angry that he threatened Lin Sun again and again. But in the end, he tasted the bitterness. He was severely tortured by Lin Sun and almost died. Tell me, why do you want to seize this fierce beast's body, and what are you doing around here? Lin Sun asked. The young man was dying. His eyes were full of resentment, and he gritted his teeth without saying a word. Lin Sun did not hesitate to torture the young man and finally forced him to tell the truth. It turned out that there was a place like a lake in the depths of this starry area, in which silver water flowed. It was extremely magical. The lake had appeared recently, and it often showed mysterious visions, which attracted the attention of many strong practitioners. After investigation, those strong practitioners finally concluded that there was an unparalleled meteorite hidden at the bottom of the lake. It was the size of a small hill and was silver all over. The mysterious phenomenon that had appeared in the void had come from this piece of star remnant meteorite. However, there was a colossus that looked like a dragon turtle standing guard at the side of the star remnant meteor. Anyone that approached it would be killed immediately. As such, it was unknown how many experts had died in the hands of the dragon turtle beast. We hunted this alien beast in order to act as bait and lead the dragon turtle beast away, so that we could take the opportunity to seize the meteorite. The young man was tortured miserably, and he was in so much pain that he wanted to die. He told everything truthfully. Bait. Lin Sun raised his eyebrows. Yes, we discovered that the dragon turtle variant beast is not interested in anything. It only likes to devour these strange variant beasts of the galaxy. Speaking of this, the young man raised his head with difficulty and said, I've told you everything I know. Now you should let me go, right? Lin Sun said, Do you think you still have a chance to live? The young man was stunned for a moment, and then he became furious and roared with resentment. Despicable! If my young master knew this, he would not let you go. Puff! Lin Sun put his strength into his palm and ended the young man's life. A servant is so powerful. The young master he mentioned must be Xing Etian, the leader of the young generation of the Thunder Wing clan, Miss Lu said thoughtfully. Is he very powerful? Lin Sun asked. Very powerful. Miss Lu nodded. This person can be considered to be exceptionally talented. He has been cultivating beside an old monster at the King Realm since he was young, and has even received personal guidance from a sage. He can be said to be unparalleled in his bravery and is rather famous among the younger generation of the East Victory domain. How is he compared with Yu Lingkong? I don't know. I've only heard some things about him, but I don't know much about him. But he deserves his reputation. If you meet him here, you should be careful. Generally, such a peerless figure must be protected by a great master. Lin Sun nodded his head. They continued to walk towards the depths of this area. An hour later, suddenly, a series of loud shouts came from afar. A group of strong practitioners was chasing a giant silver bear in the distance. The enormous silver bear was extremely powerful, ferocious, and terrifying. Its fur was suffused with brilliant divine radiance. He slapped out with his palm, shattering the void. Let's go together. Don't let it escape. This evil beast has just swallowed a piece of meteorite the size of a cattail leaf fan. It's a top-grade treasure. We must kill it as soon as possible. Someone roared. At the mention of the meteorite, everyone's eyes lit up. The higher the quality of the star remnant meteorite, the rarer and more precious the treasures that could be cut out of it. No matter what the treasures that could be cut out of a superb meteorite the size of a cattail leaf fan were, they could definitely be sold for a sky-high price. Roar, however, to the surprise of those strong practitioners, the giant silver bear seemed to be completely irritated. It stopped running and launched a counterattack. What happened next was even more chilling. The giant silver bear swayed and grew to a height of 300 meters, like a giant silver mountain. Puff! It waved its arms like an iron pillar sweeping across the universe, filling the void. In an instant, the bodies of several strong practitioners were smashed into pieces, turning into a rain of blood. Oh no, run! Damn it! How could this evil beast suddenly become stronger? It's cheating. It deliberately showed weakness just now. The rest of the strong practitioners were shocked and angry, trying to escape in a hurry. However, the giant silver bear let out a deafening roar and began its counterattack and slaughter. When looked at from afar, it was simply like a silver-colored mountain was moving, and all the experts it caught up to didn't survive, and their bodies were smashed into pieces. In the end, only 7 or 8 experts managed to escape with their lives. Everyone else perished, their corpses lying on the surface of the river. Clatter without opponents, the giant silver bear flashed and became as tall as a man. It opened its mouth and spat out a silver meteorite. Humph, a group of idiots. How dare you think about what I have eaten? Are you courting death? The giant silver bear muttered with disdain. This fellow looks arrogant, but I didn't expect him to be so cunning. In the distance, Miss Lu was a little surprised. She didn't expect the giant silver bear to be so black-bellied. It had deliberately shown weakness just now and killed a large number of strong practitioners. Let's go and take a look, Lin Sun said as he took action. Who is it? The giant silver bear was vigilant. It opened its mouth and swallowed the meteorite. Then, it stared fiercely at Lin Sun, who was approaching. Are you a star beast or a creature of this world? Lin Sun sized it up with interest. The giant white bear's fur was smooth and shiny. It was extremely plump and gave off a domineering aura just by standing there casually. The giant silver bear was about to answer, but its eyes rolled and it changed its words. It snorted coldly. Why do you care? If you are a star beast, you will inevitably be killed, Lin Sun said casually. The giant silver bear was stunned. What if I'm not? You will also die. Lin Sun stroked his chin and stared at the pair of fat bear paws. I haven't tasted bear paws yet. I don't know how they taste. In the end, I'm going to die. The giant silver bear was furious and aggressive. That depends on whether you cooperate or not, Lin Sun said with a smile. For example, I can take the meteorite in your stomach. Before he finished his words, Lin Sun was stunned. Because at this moment, the giant silver-white bear actually ran away. Ha ha, idiot. Do you think I'm as stupid as you? If I didn't feel that you were a little dangerous, I would have slapped you to death. The giant silver bear's laughter came from afar, full of complacency and cunningness. When he wanted to give chase, the other party had already fled without a trace, and his figure had vanished into the boundless void. Lin Sun's lips twitched imperceptibly. He was also very surprised. The giant white bear's speed of escape was extremely fast, comparable to teleportation. It was very shocking. Looking into the distance, Miss Lu and the others were obviously holding back their laughter. Who could imagine that the incomparably fierce demon god Lin would be defeated by a giant white bear? Chapter 981. Seeing this, Lin Sun couldn't help but feel ashamed. It was really wrong to let a stupid bear escape. However, when he thought about it carefully, Lin Sun had an indescribable feeling. The silver bear seemed inconspicuous, but Lin Sun felt a vague sense of danger deep in his heart. It seemed that there was an extremely terrible power dormant in the white bear's body. Once it broke out, it would release unpredictable destructive power. It was really strange. Lin Sun shook his head and stopped thinking about it. They continued to move forward. The atmosphere became more and more silent along the way. The void was full of swaying silver starlight, ethereal and ethereal. Whoosh! Not long after, another ferocious beast charged out. This was an enormous wolf spider. Its entire body was sparkling and translucent, and it flowed with silver light. It was over 30 meters in size, and it was densely covered in thick legs. Its limbs were sharp and shiny like blades. It was extremely powerful, releasing a wave of shocking viciousness. As it moved through the air, its legs brandished about like dazzling long blades, slicing open cracks in the void. The battle broke out without any suspense. Lin Sun rushed up to fight with it. To his surprise, he couldn't break the defense of the silver tarantula with only his fists and feet. Moreover, its limbs were like blades, silvery white and snow white, unstoppable. Its destructive power was extremely terrifying. According to Lin Sun's estimation, this silver tarantula was at least not weaker than those peerless figures in the world in terms of combat power. This was extremely inconceivable, and it made this area seem even more mysterious and terrifying. In the end, Lin Sun used the broken sword to kill the silver tarantula and put its body away. But it was not over. On the way, there were fierce beasts rushing out from time to time, including silver tiger mastiffs, vipers, mountain rhinoceroses and so on. These fierce beasts obviously didn't belong to the ancient Desolation territory. They should be called alien beasts. They were stronger than the other, and the weakest one was more powerful than the top practitioners of reincarnation developing realm. Even the huge viper with a body of thousands of meters that Lin Sun met was absolutely at the level of half-step king realm. When it was angry, the wind and clouds would surge, and the earth would crack. It was extremely fierce. It took Lin Sun a lot of trouble to kill the viper. Several hours later, Lin Sun had killed more than a dozen similar alien beasts. But what puzzled him was that he didn't see another opponent like the giant silver bear, which gave him a sense of danger. Finally, Lin Sun and the others saw the silver lake that the young man from the Thunder Wing clan had mentioned. It was indeed a lake that could be said to be mystical. It was surrounded by numerous islands and reefs, and the lake water revealed a type of holy silver color. As far as the eye could see, it was like a lake of flowing stars. It was dreamlike and beautiful to the extreme. It really is different. Lin Sun and the others were amazed. Didn't that fellow say that there's an unparalleled meteorite hidden under the lake? He even said that it's the size of a small mountain. I wonder if it's true. Ko Xing's eyes burned as he sized up the lake. Everyone, be careful. There are many experts hiding nearby. Lin soon spread his spiritual awareness and instantly captured many powerful breaths hidden on the nearby islands and reef. What surprised him was that there were many half-step King Realm experts among them. On the contrary, there were very few reincarnation developing realm experts. However, this was reasonable. How could those who could come all the way here be ordinary people? If it weren't for Lin Sun, Ko Xing and the others wouldn't have been able to come here by themselves. It's weird. Since these guys are already here, why don't I see anyone taking action? Ko Xing and the others also felt a little strange. It's very simple. They are all waiting for the best time. No one is willing to be the first to die. Miss Li's clear eyes sparkled. From this, we can infer that there must be great danger hidden in the Silver Lake. Even those half-step King Realm experts have to be cautious and don't dare to act arbitrarily. Don't worry about them. You stay here later. I'll set up a formation to protect you. I'll try the weirdness in the lake alone, Lin Sun suddenly said. A trace of imperceptible strangeness flashed in the depths of his eyes. Because at this moment Little Silver, who had been imprisoned in his sea of consciousness, was extremely excited, which was very unusual. Will it be too dangerous for you to go alone? Miss Lu was a little worried. Don't forget that there are many ruthless people hiding nearby. Even if you have some gains at the bottom of the lake, you will definitely be attacked by them as long as you return. These words were nothing more than a reminder to Lin Sun that the mantis stalks the cicada, unaware of the oriole behind. I understand. Even if I encounter danger, don't I have a backup plan? Lin Sun smiled. As he spoke, he waved his sleeve, and bronze formation flags splashed out and inserted into the void. In the blink of an eye, the king's 4 symbols was set up. At the same time, Lin Sun handed Miss Lu the formation plate and a storage bag filled with upper-grade spiritual marrow. This was the key to activating the formation. Once they encountered danger, they only needed to control the formation plate and use the power of the spiritual marrow as support to activate the entire formation. Now, I can't wait for some ignorant fellows to rush over and throw their lives away. If that's the case, we might even be able to plunder some spoils of war. After all, those fellows have already arrived here. I'm sure they've already excavated quite a number of star remains and meteorites, said Miss Lu with a smile. Ko Xing and the others couldn't help but laugh. At the same time, Lin Sun had already moved alone and approached the Silver Lake. He seemed to be taking a leisurely stroll with a relaxed demeanor, but in fact, the strength in his body had long been ready. He was like a fully drawn bowstring, ready to shoot at any moment. Lin Sun didn't stop until he reached the lakeside. Little Silver, don't you think we can talk now? Lin Sun said leisurely in his sea of consciousness. Little Silver had been unusually excited ever since he arrived at the Silver Lakeside, but when he heard Lin Sun's words, he immediately calmed down and said, Master, what are you up to now? Give up, I won't be fooled by you again. My pride and dignity will not be trampled on again, not even by you. Lin Sun almost choked to death by these words. He was a little flustered and exasperated. Little guy, what are you saying? Are you trying to rebel? I've let you reflect for so many days, and this is the result? Master, I didn't do anything wrong. You were wrong. You shouldn't have deceived me so black-hearted last time. If you don't apologize, I won't forgive you. Little Silver was very stubborn, like a child. Lin Sun was speechless. He had never seen such an arrogant spirit-eating insect. It kept calling him master, but didn't listen to him at all. Okay, I apologize to you. I was indeed a little thoughtless last time, but I did it to make you stay by my side. You should understand my good intentions, and not choose to fight against me. Lin Sun sighed and inculcated this proud little guy. Not sincere enough. Little Silver's answer was stiff. You. Lin Sun was just about to get angry and teach this disobedient little thing a lesson when Little Silver changed the subject. But I forgive you. At once Lin Sun snorted and said, "That's more like it." Then his anger disappeared. Little Silver was indeed like a child. After saying that he forgave Lin Sun, he seemed to have completely untied the knot in his heart. He said excitedly, "Master, there is a powerful soul source in this place. If I can get it, I can advance further and grow to the third stage. At that time, I can degenerate from an insect body and turn into a human form." Soul source? Lin Sun's black eyes narrowed. Yes, a very pure and powerful soul source, which is hidden under the Silver Lake. Little Silver's voice had a hint of hope. "Master, don't you want to see me advance? If I can degenerate into a human form, then I can awaken the talent of my bloodline and practice the inherited secret method of our spirit-eating insect tribe." Lin Sun was shocked. Only then did he realize that he seemed to have underestimated Little Silver's potential. This was an exotic insect ranked in the top 10 in ancient times, and now it had the potential to become a king. If it could awaken the talent, it was destined to become more powerful. "Are you begging me?" Lin Sun felt very comfortable and thought that he had taken the initiative. "Master, this is what you should do," Little Silver said seriously. Black lines appeared on Lin Sun's forehead. This little guy was too upright. Couldn't he show even a little bit of weakness and be kind to him? "Master, our spirit-eating insect tribe is born with pride and will never do those shameless and flattering things. Please respect me in the future," Little Silver said sternly. Lin Sun was completely defeated by this little guy. Although he gnashed his teeth with hatred and had the impulse to beat this little guy up, in the end he held back. In any case, it was a spirit-eating insect after all, and a larva with a king body. It had been famous in ancient times, so he had to respect it. "I'll enter the lake later, and you'll show me the way. It's up to you whether we can get the power of the soul source or not." Lin Sun put aside distracting thoughts and said seriously, "Yes." Little Silver nodded hard. Lin Sun was very pleased, and muttered in his heart that it would be good if Little Silver was usually so obedient. Without further delay, Lin Sun was ready to act. His figure flashed, and he rose into the air, carefully sweeping towards the center of the Silver Lake. "That boy finally can't stand it anymore. I don't know which family he belongs to. He's too reckless and impulsive, and he doesn't even know that he's about to die. Isn't that better? That ferocious beast at the bottom of the lake is extremely terrifying, and it's swallowed countless experts during these past few days. If this kid is able to attract that ferocious beast, then we can seize this opportunity to seize that piece of star remains meteorite. Haha, he's really young and ignorant." Many strong people were hiding on the islands and reefs near the Silver Lake. When they saw Lin Sun's action, their expressions became strange, including mockery, playfulness, pity, and gloating. At the same time, Miss Lu and the others hiding in the king's 4 symbols forbidden formation couldn't help but become nervous. They stared at Lin Sun's figure, lest something should happen to him. Chapter 982. Lin Sun cautiously flew high in the sky and spread his divine sense in all directions. Then, he began to take out the corpses from the storage ring. First was the carcass of a pangolin. He threw it into the lake, and the originally calm surface of the lake splashed with silver waves. This kid is smart. He knows to use the flesh and blood of the alien beast as bait to attract the attention of the dragon turtle. Many big shots commented in secret, "I've seen that pangolin before. Its combat strength is extremely violent and ferocious. Ordinary reincarnation developing realm cultivators are no match for it. I didn't expect this kid to kill it." Deducing from this, the reason why this kid is so fearless is because he has confidence. Unfortunately, he is still too young. He doesn't know how terrifying the dragon turtle at the bottom of the lake is. The sound of discussion arose in the dark. Although Lin Sun's performance surprised them, they still believed that Lin Sun would undoubtedly die. This kid is very capable. He even hunted a silver wolf spider beast. That's a terrifying exotic beast of the galaxy. Soon, everyone was stunned when they saw Lin Sun take out the corpse of a silver-white spider that was more than 30 meters long and throw it into the lake. I've seen this wolf spider. It has killed many strong people. It is bloodthirsty and abnormal. Even the top experts in the reincarnation developing realm would not dare to confront this monster. Is this kid a prototype of some great force? Suddenly, many strong people looked at Lin Sun differently. They realized that he might be a stunning figure in the younger generation. Imperceptibly, they restrained a lot of their disdain and contempt. That's not right. He has already thrown out 2 corpses. According to previous experience, the dragon turtle at the bottom of the lake should have been alarmed long ago. Why is there no movement until now? Some people were puzzled. This scene was very unusual. Other strong people also found it strange. They were somewhat uncertain and bewildered. Could it be that the bait is not enough? Lin Sun was also puzzled. He stood high up in the sky, thought for a moment, and began to throw the corpses again. When they noticed this scene, whether it was the half-step king realm experts on the nearby islands or the reincarnation developing realm cultivators, they were all dumbfounded and gasped. Alien tiger mastiff, alien mountain rhinoceros, silver-armored praying mantis. One after another, the bloodthirsty and perverted star beasts were tossed out of the young man's hands into the lake like garbage. The lake water began to tumble violently, splashing out layers upon layers of silver waves. The scene looked magnificent and beautiful. However, in the eyes of all the experts, this scene carried a unique and shocking force, and it created a strong visual impact that almost caused them to be dumbfounded. What the f***ck, isn't this too much of a freak? Did he really kill more than 10 astral beasts by himself? Be good. This young master is clearly a fierce stubble. I suspect that even the peerless figures of the younger generation are not as fierce as him. F***ck, I actually misjudged him this time. The experts hiding in the dark were stirring restlessly. They were all intimidated. Previously, they were extremely disdainful of Lin Sun's actions, thinking that it was no different from courting death. Therefore, they all thought that Lin Sun was too young and reckless and ignorant. But now, they only felt that their cheeks were burning as if they had been slapped in the face silently. They realized that they had misjudged Lin Sun. This was not ignorant at all. It was clearly a fierce dragon crossing the river. Especially when they saw Lin Sun carrying out a 3,000-meter-long viper, the experts of Half-Step King Realm couldn't calm down. Those half-step Monarch Realm experts were unable to maintain their composure as well, and their expressions turned grim while their eyeballs almost popped out of their sockets. They remembered that this viper was absolutely a fierce character among the alien beasts. Once it was angry, it could stir up the wind and scudding the clouds. Its combat power was absolutely not less than that of Half-Step King Realm. But now it turned into a dead body. No one knew how it was killed. Its 3,000-meter-long body was covered with frightening cracks and hideous scars. Then, the corpse of the Half-Step King Realm Viper was also thrown into the lake by Lin Sun like garbage. When they saw this scene, the Half-Step King Realm Viper felt cold from the bottom of their spines. They felt uncomfortable all over. If the Viper was also killed by that young man, didn't it mean that his combat power could kill a Half-Step King Realm Viper? He must be a little monster from some ancient orthodoxy with peerless talent. Otherwise, it's impossible for him to be so powerful. A Half-Step King Realm Viper looked solemn and his heart was quite unsettled. At this point, the experts that were hiding in the shadows suddenly realized that the young man that was moving alone was far from being as simple as they'd imagined. Get ready. This time, with this young man restraining the dragon turtle beast at the bottom of the lake, it's enough to greatly increase our chances of seizing the meteorite. Some people were excited and realized that this was a great opportunity. Others were immediately tempted. Yes, the young man was so powerful that he could restrain the dragon turtle beast. In this way, It was undoubtedly equivalent to creating an excellent opportunity for them to seize the treasure. "Young man, you must do a good job." Some experts couldn't help but encourage Lin Sun. Of course, they only did it in their hearts. They didn't dare to shout it out so as to avoid causing an accident. But to everyone's surprise, what happened next caused all of them to be taken aback. After the corpses of more than 10 exotic beasts were tossed out, the surface of the Silver Lake returned to silence in the end. From the beginning to the end, the figure of the dragon turtle beast didn't appear at all. Even Lin Sun himself was stunned. Even this didn't work? What's going on? In the dark, those experts were surprised and bewildered as well. They acutely noticed that some sort of change had probably occurred at the bottom of the Silver Lake. Could it be that the dragon turtle beast at the bottom of the lake has also noticed the young man's strength and is too scared to show its head? Someone joked, but it drew angry glares from the crowd. How could he make such a joke at such a time? No matter how ferocious the young man was, could he be more ferocious than the dragon turtle at the bottom of the lake? After all, the dragon turtle beast had devoured more than one half-step king realm viper a while ago. It was truly boundlessly terrifying. Looks like I can only take the risk and explore the bottom of the lake. Lin Sun frowned and pondered for a long time before he finally made a decision. This Silver Lake was very miraculous. It was able to block the detection of divine senses, making it difficult for people to spy on the scene within it from the outside. This was also the reason why Lin Sun was unwilling to enter the lake for so long. But now, the bait had been used up, and the dragon turtle beast still hadn't been lured out. This left Lin Sun at his wit's end and he could only take the risk. Swish! In the end, Lin Sun gritted his teeth and charged into the Silver Lake. Almost at the instant he entered the lake, he took out the wordless pagoda, which emitted a brilliant golden light to defend his body. This place was very dangerous, so Lin Sun didn't dare to be careless. At the same time, all the experts near the lake were shocked. They didn't expect that the young man would be so ferocious as to directly charge into the lake. The bottom of the lake was his territory. Wasn't he worried about being swallowed by the dragon turtle beast? When did Dongxing Boundary have such a peerless figure? Someone murmured absent-mindedly. It's a pity. Once that young man enters, he is destined to meet with misfortune. He also made us lose the opportunity to seize the opportunity to seize the opportunity, someone lamented. Sister Lu, will Brother Lin soon be in danger? Xiao he couldn't help but ask in the restrictive formation. He won't. Miss Lu was actually very nervous, but she smiled and said, Your brother Lin Sun is an extraordinary figure. People call him the Devil God. The entire Shiheng boundary has been stirred up by him. Don't you think he's powerful? Xiao He's eyes flashed brightly as she said, He's powerful. I wonder if I can be like Brother Lin Sun in the future and make people remember my name. Miss Lu smiled and said, As long as you want to, you can definitely do it. However, you'd better not set your Brother Lin Sun as your goal. Why? Because to catch up to his pace will be very, very difficult. Miss Lu pondered for a long time before answering seriously. How difficult? You'll naturally understand when you have the achievements he has today on the path of great Tao. At this point, Miss Lu sighed inwardly. She knew very well that only a small portion of the younger generation could catch up to Lin Sun's pace. And how many could really compete with great Tao on the path of great Tao? Even she couldn't guess or estimate it. At the same time, at the bottom of the Silver Lake. Eat, eat, eat. You only know how to eat. You're still eating when disaster is upon you. Aren't you afraid of bursting to death? A giant silvery white bear was flustered and exasperated. It used its fan-like paw to slap a massive creature beside it. That was a strange beast that looked like an old turtle but had a dragon's head. Its body spanned hundreds of meters. Just its eyes alone were like a pair of huge millstones. It lay there like a mountain range, its body covered in dark and ice-cold scales. At this moment it was chewing and swallowing a silver-white tarantula. Its long and narrow snow-white teeth that were like swords were filled with flesh and blood, and it ate with relish. The giant silvery white bear's paw slapped on its scales, causing clattering sounds and sparks to fly in all directions. However, it was like scratching an itch for the bear, and it couldn't divert its attention from the delicious food at all. This caused the giant silvery white bear to be flustered and exasperated. It flew into a rage and wished for nothing more than to strangle this heartless glutton to death. "Don't you see? You're eating the bait that kid threw down. He's waiting to kill you, stupid thing," the giant silvery white bear roared. Finally, the dragon turtle spoke lazily in a low and muffled voice. "What are you afraid of? It's good that he's here. Just eat him directly." As it spoke, it continued to enjoy its food. This time, it ate a tiger mastiff. The giant silvery white bear was furious, and it kicked the tiger mastiff flying. After that, it glared at the dragon turtle and gnashed its teeth as it said word by word, "I told you, he's different from the others. What's different about him?" The dragon turtle was displeased when its food was kicked away, and it stretched out its mouth to take the food back. "He has the aura of that old madman on him." As soon as the giant silvery white bear spoke, the dragon turtle that had just swallowed the food seemed as if it was terrified, and its entire body stiffened and it almost fainted from being choked. P.S. The third update will be up, and the fourth update will be before 10 p.m. There were even children asking about the official account. Gosh, the goldfish said it again. Click on the official account on WeChat and search for Xiaojinyu 233. Chapter 983. The dragon turtle coughed violently, and it almost choked on its tears. However, it couldn't be bothered about all of this. Its enormous body that lay prone on the ground suddenly stood up, and it said anxiously, "Which old madman is it?" Earlier, it seemed to be immovable and calm, and it was calmly enjoying its food and calmly listening to the impatient roars of the silver bear. It seemed to be very absent-minded. Yet now, it seemed as if its butt was on fire, and it couldn't even be bothered to eat its food while its eyes were opened wide as if it was terrified. The difference between before and after was too huge. However, the silver bear didn't laugh at it because its heart felt extremely heavy when the words "old madman" were mentioned. Is there another old madman in this world that can scare us to such an extent? The silver bear spoke angrily, and it seemed to be very agitated. The words "old madman" were like a taboo to it, and its heart couldn't help but palpitate when it was mentioned. Didn't he die? The dragon turtle seemed to be dazed. Die my ass. Even the boundless universe starry sky can't stop a person like him from going mad. How could he possibly die so easily? The silver bear gnashed its teeth while its eyes were filled with fear. How can you be sure? The dragon turtle grew even more nervous. Its enormous body was trembling slightly while the scales that covered its body rattled. In its memories, that old madman was an unimaginably terrifying existence. The aura on that young man is very unique. Even though it's very weak and can't even compare to a 10,000th of the old madman's, it's from the same source as the old madman's aura. The silver bear's eyes surged with light. I once came into close contact with that young man and personally sensed it. It's absolutely not wrong. It's really that sort of aura? The fangs in the dragon turtle's mouth were trembling, and it seemed to be extremely terrified. This seemed to be very amusing because a terrifying being that had once swallowed a half-step king realm expert was terrified to such an extent from merely a single aura. If an outsider were to see this, they would probably not dare believe their eyes. The silver bear nodded with a heavy heart. At that time, it was shocked out of its wit. Even though it was clearly aware that the young man's cultivation wasn't sufficient to deter it, it couldn't arouse the intention to go against the young man, and it had no choice but to flee. The reason was that the aura of the energy of the Grand Tao on the young man's body possessed a strength that was sufficient to make it feel fearful and fearful. Now you should understand. This time, we have to change our territory. The giant silvery white bear sighed. In truth, when the Boundary River underwent such a great change, I already knew that this day would come. But I didn't expect it to come so soon. Even the aura of that crazy old man has appeared. Old friend, we can only leave. When the silver bear spoke up to hear, it suddenly turned around, yet it noticed that the dragon turtle had actually fled a long time ago, and it was unbelievably swift. You motherfucker! Why the fuck are you still the same as back then, running away without even saying anything? The giant silvery white bear was flabbergasted, furious to the extreme. If we escaped, we would have been dead long ago. Stop talking nonsense and quickly take the young miss away. At the bottom of the lake, the dragon turtle's 4 limbs shifted. Its enormous body was unbelievably fast as it stirred up the silver lake water. The immortal artifact roared as it roared. Anyone who saw this scene would be overwhelmed by fear. Such a terrifying dragon turtle was fleeing faster than anyone else, like a bird startled by the mere twang of a bowstring. Seeing this, the giant silvery white bear dared not neglect and started to run wildly at the bottom of the lake. Rumble! As soon as Lin Sun entered the silver lake, he felt that the lake water suddenly rolled violently as if it was boiling, producing a powerful impact that pressed on him from all directions. Could it be that the dragon turtle has been patiently waiting for me to enter before launching an attack directly? Lin Sun's heart tightened. He activated the wordless pagoda to defend himself and rushed to the bottom of the lake. If he chose to turn back at this moment, it would be even more dangerous. If he went against the flow, he might have a chance to resist and save his life. Moreover, he also wanted to have a try to see how powerful the dragon turtle was. However, although the lake water was rolling more and more fiercely, Lin Sun didn't suffer any danger from beginning to end, which made him suspicious and more vigilant. When he dived to the bottom of the lake, he suddenly noticed that a huge white shadow was running wildly in front of him at an extremely fast speed. Hey! Isn't this the giant silvery white bear? Lin Sun was stunned. He never thought that he would meet a familiar guy here before he found the dragon turtle beast. Why was this guy here? And he looked like he was running for his life. Could it be that he was being chased by the dragon turtle? Thinking of this, Lin Sun's heart shuddered. He couldn't care about anything else and immediately chased after him. He operated the ice dragon steps to the extreme and his speed was also extremely fast. Shit, that guy actually caught up with me. In front, when the giant silvery white bear sensed Lin Sun's breath approaching, it was so shocked that it cursed in its heart and was extremely anxious. Whitey, why are you running away? Lin Sun transmitted his voice to the bear from afar. He vaguely felt that the situation seemed to be very wrong. Whitey? Fuck you, Whitey! The giant silvery white bear cursed in its heart, but it said in a thick and honest voice, "Young man, I'm just taking a walk. Why are you running after my ass?" Taking a walk? Screw you! Lin Sun also cursed in his heart, but he said with a smile, "What a coincidence! I'm also taking a walk. How about we go together? The scenery at the bottom of the lake is really good." Oh yes, this lake is not simple. It's formed from a real-life star core. It's full of mysterious star essence, which is very useful for activating the meridians and tendons and relaxing the blood qi. It can cure all kinds of back soreness, leg pain, and back cramp. So magical? Of course. Otherwise, why would I be so idle to take a walk here? Then I'll have to give it a try. Oh, you're still young and full of vitality. You can't use it. Too much is as bad as not enough. I advise you to leave quickly. That won't do. I'll be a bastard if I don't take advantage of it. Whitey, you're so anxious to persuade me to leave. Don't tell me you want to monopolize the benefits? The man and the beast, one in front and one behind, chased each other. They were talking nonsense and lying through their teeth. The scene was very strange for a moment. Benefits? Don't misunderstand. I'll leave in a moment. If you don't believe me, come back later. The giant silver bear was anxious. It ran faster and faster. No, what if I don't see you later? Lin Sun also quickened his pace. He was more and more suspicious that the giant white bear was plotting something. Then, he was startled. He acutely sensed that after going around in circles, it was actually chasing him in circles. It was obvious that the giant white bear was deliberately playing trick. Whitey, you're very dishonest. Why are you leading me in circles? Lin Sun's heart trembled. He realized that the bear might be stalling for time. It's just a stroll, isn't it? The giant silver bear answered very casually. Its face didn't even blush when it lied. Then you go. I'll go first, Lin Sun said as he dashed to the side. Because at that moment, Little Silver in his sea of consciousness warned him that he had detected the source of the soul source. Hey, little friend, didn't we agree to take a stroll together? Why are you leaving again? The giant silver bear was very anxious. When it saw where Lin Sun was going, it almost jumped in fright. With a swoosh, it started to run like crazy, chasing after Lin Sun instead. Seeing this, Lin Sun was even more certain that this treacherous giant white bear was clearly trying to pin him down. Little friend, wait for me. Aren't you tired from running so fast? Little friend, the giant white bear called out behind him, but Lin Sun ignored it. He focused on sprinting with all his might. Not long after, a dazzling silver light suddenly appeared in front of him. Upon closer inspection, it was a meteorite the size of a small mountain. It was over 30 meters tall, and its entire body was as translucent as ice and snow. Its surface was flowing with blazing silver starlight, just like a real star. Faint, mysterious visions appeared around it. Stars sinking and the moon falling, seas turning into mulberry fields, and all things changing. The visions described the mysterious aura of the vicissitudes of time, which was magnificent and shocking. This should be the star remnant meteorite that everyone has their eyes on. It is indeed an extraordinary treasure. Lin Sun's heart palpitated with excitement. He felt a strong vitality coming to him, as vast as the sea and as strong as the sun. Boom! But before Lin Sun could perceive it clearly, he saw the huge meteorite break open from the inside, and a fierce beast only 30 meters long with a dragon's head and turtle's body and 4 pillar-like hooves rushed out. The fierce beast's body was covered with cold scales, and at this moment it was carrying an ice coffin on its back. The ice coffin was 3 meters long, surrounded by wisps of holy starlight. Mysterious pictures of flowers, birds, insects, fish, the sun, the moon, stars, ancestors offering sacrifices, and so on could be vaguely seen. It gave off an ancient and mysterious aura. The most frightening thing was that a silver star map was branded on the cover of the ice coffin. It seemed to contain a vast starry sky, and the river of stars flowed in it as if it was boundless. A dragon turtle carrying a mysterious ice coffin on its back rushed out of a meteorite that was as huge as a mountain. The scene was too shocking. At this moment, Lin Sun ran his strength to the limit without hesitation, and the wordless pagoda that had been accumulating strength for a long time sprayed out rays of dazzling golden brilliance. This dragon turtle was extremely terrifying. Otherwise, it would be impossible for all the half-step King Realm experts to be afraid to approach this lake. But to Lin Sun's surprise, this dragon turtle seemed to be even more surprised than him. It jumped up with a swoosh, and its eyes almost popped out as it cried, "My God! It's really the aura of that old madman. This is too terrifying!" It cried out involuntarily, and it looked at Lin Sun as if it was staring at a boundlessly terrifying existence, revealing incomparable panic. This Lin Sun was a little stunned. He was about to make a move, but how could he have imagined that he would encounter such an absurd and strange scene? Sob, 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 the successor of the old madman has appeared. The successor of the old madman. The dragon turtle let out a howl that sounded like a ghost wailing and a wolf howling. it strode out with its 4 iron pillar-like legs, and with a swoosh, it fled with the ice coffin on its back. It looked like a stray dog that wished its parents had given it 2 more legs, which made Lin Sun a little speechless. Am I so terrifying?